As we move deeper into this reflection, we can begin to see how this sense of incompletion extends even to the massive, solid worlds we call home. We often think of the Earth as a finished sphere, a completed stage for life to play out its drama. But the Earth, too, is still receiving these gifts from space. Every day, tons of cosmic dust and small fragments rain down upon our atmosphere, silently adding to the mass of our world. We are growing bit by bit as the system continues to share its treasures. It is a quiet, nightly reunion between the planet and the space it inhabits, a reminder that the boundary between here and there is softer than we think. We are part of the same unfinished architecture, built from the same drifting memories of the stars, the long memory of dust. As we consider the slow movement of the giants, it is helpful to look at the smaller things, the tiny fragments of stone and ice that linger in the spaces between. We often imagine space as a vast, empty vacuum, a void where nothing happens until you reach the surface of a planet. But the truth is much more textured and delicate. The solar system is filled with a fine, ethereal mist of primordial dust, the leftovers from the very first days of our sun's awakening. This dust is not just debris, it is a library of the unfinished. Every grain carries a chemical memory of where it has been, and the forces that have tried and failed to pull it into a larger body. When you see the faint, ghostly glow in the sky just after sunset or before sunrise, known as the zodiacal light, you are looking at the sun reflecting off this ancient cloud. It is a visual reminder that the construction site of our system was never fully swept clean. In the quietest corners of the belt between Mars and Jupiter, or out in the frozen reaches of the Kuiper belt, these small particles are still participating in the long process of becoming. For billions of years, gravity has been trying to organize this material, attempting to sweep it into the orbits of planets or gather it into new moons. Yet, much of it remains stubbornly independent, drifting in a state of perpetual potential. It is as if the universe decided to leave some of its building blocks scattered on the floor, allowing us to see the raw ingredients of our origin. This persistence of the small and the scattered tells us that the solar system is not a closed book. It is a work where some chapters are still being written in a very fine, nearly invisible hand. The dust grains collide, they stick together, they are pushed by the pressure of sunlight, and they slowly, incredibly slowly, continue the work of building. There is a gentle rhythm to this accumulation. It is a process that operates on a scale of time that dwarfs our understanding of history. We think of a year as a long cycle, a full trip around the sun. But for a grain of dust in the outer reaches, a single journey might take centuries. In that time, it might feel the faint tug of Neptune or the distant influence of a passing star. These tiny interactions are the brushstrokes of a painting that takes billions of years to complete. When we observe these fragments, we are seeing the solar system's refusal to be static. It suggests that growth doesn't always have to be loud or obvious. Sometimes, the most profound changes are the ones that happen one microscopic collision at a time, hidden in the dark, silent reaches of the cold. This ongoing formation changes how we might perceive our own sense of time. If the system is still gathering itself, still sorting its smallest pieces into a final arrangement, then the era we inhabit is one of youth rather than old age. We are witnessing the adolescence of a star system. The planets have found their primary paths, yes, but the finer details, the rings, the small moons, the drifting clouds of ice, are still being negotiated. It is a soothing thought to realize that the universe is not in a hurry to reach its conclusion. It takes its time with the small things. It allows the dust to settle at its own pace, according to the patient laws of physics. As the sun continues to shine, its light acts as a gentle wind, a pressure known as radiation pressure that softly nudges these particles. Some are pushed away, cast out into the interstellar deep, while others are drawn inward toward the warmth. This constant sorting is a form of celestial breathing, an inhalation and exhalation of matter that keeps the system from ever becoming truly stagnant. Even the light itself is a tool of construction and refinement. It reminds us that even the most solid-looking things are part of a flow, a movement that started long before we arrived and will continue long after we are gone. In the stillness of the night, we can almost feel that flow, the quiet migration of the small, the steady pulse of a system that is still finding its way toward a distant, perfect balance. We might imagine these grains of dust as seeds, though they are seeds of stone and metal rather than life. They represent the possibility of what might yet be. In the distant future, perhaps some of this material will finally find its home, adding its mass to a moon, or forming a new, tiny world we cannot yet imagine. Or perhaps its purpose is simply to be what it is, a beautiful, drifting witness to the passage of time. There is no pressure for these fragments to become something else. They are allowed to drift, to reflect the light, and to exist in a state of peaceful incompletion. They teach us that there is value in the process itself, and that being unfinished is not a flaw, but a state of grace. The patient migration of the giants. It is a common image in our minds to see the planets as fixed points on a map, much like the cities we inhabit or the mountains that define our horizons. We think of the great gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, as the heavy anchors of our neighborhood, sitting in their permanent seats since the dawn of time. But there is a quiet, compelling theory that has reshaped how astronomers view these titans, suggesting that they are actually nomadic wanderers who are still, in their own slow way, settling into their final positions. This idea, often whispered in the halls of planetary science as a form of cosmic choreography, implies that the giants once lived much closer together, huddled near the warmth of the sun like children around a hearth, before an invisible tension broke and sent them spiraling outward into the cold. This was not a sudden explosion, but a long, sweeping migration, a grand relocation that may still be echoing in the subtle tilts and wobbles we observe today. When we consider the massive gravity of Jupiter, we must realize it is not just a planet, but a sculptor. Its influence reaches out across millions of miles, tugging at the orbits of its siblings and even nudging the small, rocky worlds closer to the sun. This gravitational conversation is never truly silent. Over millions of years, the giants have traded energy back and forth, pushing and pulling until they've found the expansive orbits they occupy now. Yet, even this current arrangement might be a temporary truce, rather than a permanent peace. There is a deep mathematical curiosity about whether the solar system is truly stable over the scale of billions of years. Some models suggest that the orbits of the outer planets are still subject to a very fine, nearly imperceptible drift, a slow motion dance that continues as they interact with the remnants of the disk from which they were born. They are like great ships in a harbor, slowly swinging on their anchor chains as the tide of time pulls at them. This perspective invites us to view the giants not as static objects, but as participants in a long, unfolding journey. It changes the way we look at the night sky. When we spot the steady yellow light of Saturn, we aren't just looking at a distant ball of gas and ice. We are looking at a traveler who has crossed vast distances to reach its current perch. And that journey may not be over. The rings of Saturn themselves are a testament to this ongoing process of change. Recent observations suggest that those iconic rings are a relatively new feature, perhaps only a few 100 million years old, a mere blink in the eyes of the universe. They are a temporary adornment, a beautiful crown made of shattered ice that is slowly, grain by grain, being drawn down into the planet's atmosphere. The Saturn we see today is a different Saturn than the one that existed during the age of the dinosaurs, and it will be different again in the deep future. This impermanence is a soothing thought. It suggests that even the largest and most powerful entities in our system are subject to growth, change, and the passage of time. They do not have to be perfect or finished. They are allowed to evolve. This ongoing migration also helps us understand the emptiness of our system. The vast gaps between the planets were not always so large. They were cleared out by the giants as they moved, like gardeners tidying a path, pushing the debris to the edges or swallowing it whole. The order we see today is the result of a long, patient effort to find balance, and that balance is a delicate, living thing. It requires constant, tiny adjustments, a perpetual fine-tuning of velocity and distance that happens without any effort from us. As we rest, these great worlds continue their patrol, leaning into the curve of space-time. Their movement is so smooth and so massive that it defies our everyday understanding of speed. We think of travel as a way to get from one point to another, but for a planet, the journey is the point. The migration is a search for harmony. When we imagine the giants drifting through the dark, we can feel a sense of shared experience. We too are often in a state of transition, moving toward a sense of stability that always seems just a little further down the road. There is comfort in knowing that even the stars and their children are still finding their way. The solar system is not a completed machine that might one day break. It is a living system that knows how to adapt and shift. The silence of this migration is perhaps its most beautiful quality. In our world, movement often comes with noise, the hum of engines, the rush of wind, the sound of footsteps. But in the deep reaches of the system, the giants move in a silence so profound it becomes a form of music. This music of the spheres isn't a sound we hear with our ears, but a rhythm we can feel in the regularity of the seasons and the predictable return of the planets to our view. It is a slow, steady pulse that reminds us that the universe is governed by laws that are patient and kind. There is no rush to finish the migration. There is no deadline for Neptune to reach its final coordinates. Everything is happening exactly as it should, in a time frame that honors the vastness of space. So, as the light fades and the world grows quiet, we can let our minds drift out toward those distant travelers. We can imagine them moving through the velvet dark, their massive shadows trailing behind them as they navigate the unseen currents of gravity. They are the guardians of our stability, but they are also fellow voyagers. By acknowledging their unfinished journey, we give ourselves permission to be unfinished too. We don't need to have all the answers tonight. We don't need to be in our final place. Like the giants, we can trust the slow drift, the patient tug of the future, and the gentle laws that keep us all moving together through the magnificent, unfinished architecture of the night, the gentle reshaping of the outer rim. Far beyond the warm glow of the sun, past the orbits of the giants we have come to know, lies a vast and shadowy territory that serves as the true frontier of our unfinished home. This is the Kuiper Belt and the distant Oort cloud, a realm of ice and silence where the solar system is still very much in its experimental phase. We often think of the edge of the system as a sharp line, a boundary where the sun's influence ends and the void begins. However, the reality is much more fluid and interesting. The outer rim is a soft, blurring edge where thousands of small frozen worlds are slowly being nudged and repositioned by the faint, ghostly gravity of the distant planets. This region is a reservoir of potential, a collection of frozen memories that have not yet found their final role in the celestial play. There is a quiet hypothesis that suggests the very shape of this outer rim is still being sculpted by a hidden hand, perhaps a world we have not yet seen, or perhaps the collective lingering influence of the stars that passed by our sun millions of years ago. This idea of stellar flybys is a beautiful example of how the solar system is not an island, but a participant in the larger life of the galaxy. Every few million years, a neighboring star wanders close enough to whisper to the objects in our outer reaches, its gravity acting like a soft comb through the hair of the Oort cloud. These encounters gently tug on the orbits of comets and ice dwarfs, shifting their paths in ways that may not manifest for another million years. It is a slow-motion interaction, a long-distance greeting between suns that ensures the outer boundaries of our system never truly settle into a permanent state. When we consider these distant frozen bodies, we realize that they are the most patient members of our solar family. A single orbit for an object in the far reaches can take tens of thousands of Earth years. To these worlds, the entire history of human civilization has passed in the time it takes to complete a fraction of a circle. They exist in a state of deep, cold peace, yet they are not forgotten. They are the unfinished business of the sun's formation. Occasionally, one of these ice dwellers is nudged just enough to begin a long, falling journey toward the inner system, becoming a comet that lights up our night sky. This is not a disruption of the system's order, but a continuation of its natural cycle. The system is constantly recycling its parts, bringing the distant cold into the warmth and sending the energy of the sun out into the dark. This ongoing exchange highlights a fundamental truth about our cosmic neighborhood. It is a system that values the long game. There is no urgency to bring every object into a neat circular orbit. There is room for the eccentric, the elongated, and the wandering. In our daily lives, we are often pressured to find a sense of closure or to finish our tasks with speed. But the outer solar system offers a different perspective. It shows us that there is a quiet dignity in taking 10,000 years to find your way home. It suggests that being in between or on the edge is a perfectly valid state of existence. The ice worlds of the Kuiper Belt are not waiting to be finished. They are existing in a state of perpetual becoming, held in a delicate balance between the sun's fading grip and the pull of the open stars. As we imagine this cold, quiet frontier, we can feel a sense of expansion in our own minds. The scale of the unfinished work at the edge of the system is so vast that it makes our own worries feel small and manageable. The universe is not worried about the timeline of the Oort cloud. It allows the ice to drift and the gravity to pull at its own leisure. There is a deep safety in this lack of hurry. The solar system is a place of immense patience, where the architecture is allowed to breathe and shift over eons. Even the vacuum of space isn't truly empty. It is filled with these slow-moving possibilities, these frozen seeds of history that are still waiting for their moment to move. We can also reflect on the way the sun's own life cycle contributes to this unfinished state. Our star is not a static lamp. It is a living, changing entity. As it ages, its wind and its light subtly change, which in turn alters the environment of the entire system. The habitable zone, that sweet spot where water can remain liquid, is not a fixed coordinate. It is a slow-moving shadow that creeps outward as the sun matures. This means that the story of where life can exist is also unfinished. Worlds that are frozen today might one day feel the warmth of a maturing sun, while worlds that are warm today may eventually find themselves too hot. The system is a moving tapestry, and we are simply witnessing one beautiful, temporary frame. As you drift closer to sleep, let your thoughts wander to those distant, frozen horizons. Imagine the quiet glow of the sun, reduced to the brightness of a particularly brilliant star, casting long, dim shadows across a landscape of ancient ice. There is no sound there, only the magnificent, heavy silence of time itself. These worlds are the guardians of the system's secrets, the quiet observers of a process that started long ago and has no interest in ending. They remind us that the most beautiful things in the universe are often the ones that take the longest to form. By resting now, you are aligning yourself with that same cosmic patience. You are allowing your own thoughts to settle, your own architecture to find its balance in the quiet, and your own story to remain, quite beautifully, unfinished. The slow breath of planetary crusts, while we often look to the stars and the distant gas giants to see the movement of the universe. there is a profound and unfinished transformation happening much closer to home, right beneath the layers of rock and soil we walk upon. We tend to view a planet like Earth, or even our silent neighbor Mars, as a finished sculpture, a solid, unmoving sphere of stone. But if we shift our perspective to the deep time of the cosmos, we begin to see that the crust of a planet is more like a cooling skin on a bowl of soup, constantly shifting, wrinkling, and being reclaimed by the heat below. This process, the slow churning of planetary interiors, is one of the most vital ways the solar system continues to build itself long after the initial dust has cleared. A planet is never truly done until its heart goes cold. And for many of the worlds in our neighborhood, that heart is still beating with a slow, molten rhythm that reshapes the surface every single day. On Earth, we see this in the majestic crawl of the continents. We are taught that the map of our world is a fixed thing, but the reality is that the ground is a traveler. The sea floors are constantly being renewed, emerging from the deep volcanic ridges and sliding back into the mantle in a graceful, endless loop of recycling. This is the planet's way of staying young, of ensuring that its chemical story never becomes stagnant. It is an unfinished conversation between the deep interior and the atmosphere above. When we consider the mountains, we shouldn't see them as permanent monuments, but as temporary ripples in a crust that is still finding its balance. They are being pushed up by the immense, quiet pressure of the plates and pulled down by the gentle persistence of wind and rain. This cycle of creation and erosion is a masterpiece of slow-motion art, a process that requires millions of years to complete a single stroke. Even on worlds that seem frozen in time, like our moon or the red plains of Mars, the story of the surface is not yet finished. We once thought of these places as dead, but we are beginning to understand that they possess their own kind of patient activity. On Mars, giant dust devils dance across the plains, and the thin atmosphere still whispers against the ancient volcanoes, slowly wearing away the edges of history. There are subtle shifts in the ground, Marsquakes, that reveal a world that hasn't quite settled into total silence. The solar system is full of these lingering energies. It is as if the heat of creation is still trying to find its way out, venting through cracks and fissures, refusing to let the worlds become mere statues. This internal restlessness is what keeps the system vibrant. It is the physical manifestation of a work in progress. There is a calming stability in this constant change. It reminds us that perfection in the natural world is not a state of being frozen, but a state of being in flow. The earth doesn't need to reach a final shape to be beautiful. Its beauty lies in the fact that it is always becoming something new. The same is true for the other rocky bodies in our family. Even the smallest moons of Jupiter are caught in a tug-of-war of gravity that kneads their interiors like dough, keeping them warm and active, sometimes even creating hidden oceans beneath shells of ice. These hidden places are the ultimate unfinished rooms of our solar house, worlds within worlds, where the conditions for something entirely new might be brewing in the dark, far from the sun's direct gaze. When we lie down to rest, we are resting on a living vessel that is carrying us through this transformation. We can feel a sense of kinship with the stone and the soil, knowing that it too is part of a long-term project. The pressures that shape the mountains and the currents that move the oceans are the same forces that govern the stars. There is no urgency in the way a mountain rises. It does not rush to reach the clouds. It moves with a confidence that comes from having all the time in the world. We can adopt that same confidence. We can let go of the need to have our lives perfectly mapped out or our problems solved by morning. Like the crust of the earth, we are allowed to shift, to settle, and to take our time in finding our true form. As the night deepens, imagine the slow, heavy movement of the earth's mantle far beneath you. It is a slow, warm sea of rock, moving at the speed that fingernails grow, yet carrying the weight of entire oceans and continents on its back. This is the hidden engine of our world's longevity. It is a reminder that the most important work often happens out of sight, in the quiet depths, without any need for recognition or haste. The solar system is a master of this kind of quiet labor. It builds, it destroys, and it rearranges, always moving toward a balance that is as vast as it is delicate. By acknowledging that the ground itself is unfinished, we find a new kind of ground beneath our feet, a ground made of patience and endurance. We are part of a system that doesn't believe in deadlines. Whether it is a volcano forming a new island or a tectonic plate sliding an inch to the west, the universe is content to let the process unfold at its natural pace. We can breathe in that same spirit of patience. We can let our thoughts move as slowly as the continents, drifting toward the edges of our consciousness, until they submerge into the warm, quiet depths of sleep. The world will continue its slow, beautiful work while we dream, and when we wake, we will find that we are still part of a story that is only just beginning. The slow architecture of planetary rings. When we gaze through a telescope at the distant amber light of Saturn, we are often struck by the sight of its rings, a series of shimmering concentric circles that seem to represent the very definition of celestial order. We tend to view these rings as a permanent crown, a royal accessory that the planet has worn since the beginning of time. Yet, one of the most tranquil and fascinating realizations in modern astronomy is that these rings are not a finished monument, but a fleeting, dynamic phenomenon. They are a work in progress, a temporary bridge of ice and dust that is currently being built and dismantled simultaneously. This realization shifts our understanding of the solar system from a gallery of static objects to a living theater of change, where even the most iconic features are part of a slow, unfolding transition. Recent observations suggest that the rings of Saturn might be far younger than the planet itself, perhaps appearing only in the last few 100 million years, roughly the same era when the first dinosaurs began to walk the Earth. This means that for the vast majority of its life, Saturn was a solitary giant, unadorned and plain. The rings were likely born from a moment of quiet gravity, perhaps a small moon that wandered too close to the giant and was gently, persistently pulled apart by tidal forces. This was not a violent explosion, but a gradual unraveling, a moon turning into a cloud and then into a disk of millions of sparkling fragments. It is an unfinished transformation, The rings are still settling, still sorting themselves by size and weight, and still responding to the subtle gravitational whispers of the moons that orbit nearby. Inside these rings, there is a hidden world of constant rhythmic movement. The particles, ranging from the size of a grain of sand to the size of a mountain, are engaged in a perpetual dance of collisions and reunions. They are not just drifting, they are communicating through gravity. Small shepherd moons glide along the edges of the gaps, using their tiny pull to keep the ring particles in line, like a gardener tidying a gravel path. This constant maintenance is a form of unfinished architecture. The rings are not a solid object, but a collective of individuals, each following its own path, while contributing to a greater, shimmering whole. They remind us that beauty can emerge from fragmentation, and that stability can be found even in a state of constant, microscopic flux. However, the story of the rings is also one of a slow, graceful farewell. Even as we admire them, they are being reclaimed. The sun's light and the planet's magnetic field act as a silent rain, charging the smallest particles and drawing them down into Saturn's vast, swirling atmosphere. This ring rain is a process so slow that it is invisible to our eyes, yet it ensures that the rings we see today will one day be gone, return to the planet from which they perhaps once came. There is a deep, resonant peace in this cycle of borrowing and returning. It suggests that the solar system is not interested in hoarding its treasures. It creates, it displays, and then it slowly gathers its materials back into the fold to be used for something else. This sense of transience extends beyond Saturn. We have discovered that Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune also possess rings, though theirs are faint, dark, and ethereal, ghostly echoes of the grand structures we see around Saturn. These rings are perhaps in a different stage of their life, either the remnants of a glory that has passed or the humble beginnings of something yet to come. This variety tells us that planetary rings are a recurring theme in the solar system's unfinished composition. They are a natural part of a planet's maturation, a way for a world to interact with its surroundings and express the invisible forces of gravity in a visible, beautiful form. As you allow your mind to drift toward these distant, icy circles, you can imagine the sheer scale of the silence there. Out among the rings, there is no wind, no heat, and no noise. Only the soft, rhythmic clicking of ice against ice and the endless, golden reflection of a distant sun. It is a place of absolute patience. The rings do not hurry to disappear, nor do they rush to become more solid. They simply exist in their current state of grace, perfectly content to be a temporary feature of the cosmos. We can find a similar contentment within ourselves. We often feel pressured to make our achievements permanent, to build monuments that will last forever. But the rings teach us that there is a profound value in the temporary. A beautiful moment, a season of life, or a passing thought does not need to be eternal to be significant. This realization can be a gentle invitation to rest. If even the great rings of Saturn are a passing phase, then we can let go of the weight of our own expectations. We can allow our worries to become like those icy particles, small, drifting, and eventually dissolving into the larger atmosphere of our peace. We are part of a system that is comfortable with change, a system that understands that every ending is merely the start of a new, slow-motion beginning. The solar system is a master of the long view, and in that view, everything is exactly where it needs to be, even if it is only there for a few 100 million years. As the night wraps around you, imagine the shadow of Saturn stretching out across its rings, a vast, dark finger pointing toward the stars. The planet and its crown continue their journey through the dark, unhurried, and majestic. They are a reminder that the universe is still composing its masterpiece, and we are privileged to witness a few notes of the melody. You are safe within this unfolding story. You are a part of the architecture, a participant in the slow, beautiful drift. Let your breath slow to the pace of the ring rain, and let your spirit settle into the quiet, unfinished harmony of the night. The patient alchemy of gas and light. As we move deeper into the heart of our celestial neighborhood, we find that the very air and light that define our existence are part of a grand, unfinished experiment in chemistry and physics. We often think of the atmosphere of a planet, the thin, protective veil that separates the surface from the void, as a static bubble, a finished layer of insulation that was set in place eons ago. But the gases that surround us and the massive, swirling atmospheres of the outer giants are in a state of constant, slow-motion alchemy. They are being breathed out by the rocks, altered by the touch of the sun, and lost to the stars in a perpetual cycle of renewal. To look at the sky is to see a work of art that is being repainted with every passing second, a fluid masterpiece that refuses to dry. Consider the atmosphere of a world like Venus, a place of thick, heavy clouds and immense pressure. We might see it as a cautionary tale or a finished desert, but researchers often reflect on a much more subtle, unfinished story hidden within its golden mists. There is a quiet hypothesis that the atmosphere of Venus is not just a trap for heat, but a massive chemical laboratory that is still reacting to the planet's internal activity. Some suggest that the volcanic heartbeat of the planet is still pulsing, exhaling new gases into the sky that change its composition over millions of years. This means that the Venus we see today is merely a chapter in a much longer narrative of transformation. It is a world that is still deciding what kind of atmosphere it wants to have. A place where the air itself is a heavy, moving witness to a geological process that has no intention of stopping. This sense of atmospheric evolution is even more pronounced when we look toward the giants Jupiter and Saturn. These are not planets with a solid surface as we understand it. They are almost entirely atmosphere, a vast ocean of gas that becomes denser and more mysterious the deeper you go. The great red spot of Jupiter, a storm larger than our entire Earth, has been churning for centuries. Yet even this massive feature is showing signs of change. It is shrinking, shifting its hue, and perhaps eventually it will dissolve back into the bands of the planet's clouds. This tells us that the weather of the solar system is not just a daily occurrence, but a multi-century process of adjustment. The giants are like great, rotating canvases where the paint is always wet, where the storms are the brushes and the gravity of 60 moons provides the rhythm. Even our own atmosphere, The air we breathe as we settle into sleep is an unfinished legacy. Every time the sun flares or a distant cosmic ray strikes our upper air, the chemistry of our sky changes. We are losing a tiny bit of our hydrogen to the vacuum of space, while simultaneously gaining new materials from the dust of passing comets. Our sky is a living, breathing interface, a thin membrane that is constantly negotiating with the rest of the universe. There is something deeply peaceful in this realization. It means that the world is not a closed room, but an open pavilion. We are part of a continuous exchange of matter and energy that stretches from the deepest volcanic vents to the furthest reaches of the heliosphere. This ongoing alchemy is also visible in the way light interacts with the system. We often think of sunlight as a simple constant, a steady glow that provides warmth. But the sun itself is an unfinished star, currently in its long, stable middle age, yet subtly changing its output over billions of years. As the sun matures, the way it interacts with the planets shifts. It pushes the boundaries of the solar wind. It alters the auroras that dance over the poles of Jupiter and Earth, and it slowly, invisibly, changes the temperature of the entire system. We are living in a long, slow summer that has lasted for ages, but it is a summer that is gradually, gracefully, moving toward a different season in the very distant future. There is no reason for alarm in this change. It is simply the way of things. The universe does not hold its breath. It exhales. As you lie in the quiet of your room, you can imagine this invisible movement happening all around you. The air in your lungs was once part of a different world, perhaps trapped in a rock or floating in a distant cloud, and it will one day be part of something else. This is the ultimate comfort of the unfinished. Nothing is ever truly lost. It is only transformed. The solar system is a master of recycling, taking the old and making it new, taking the chaotic and turning it into the rhythmic. We are part of that same cycle. Our thoughts, our worries, and our dreams are like the gases of a distant planet. They shift, they swirl, and they eventually find a place of calm. Imagine the high-altitude clouds of Neptune, frozen wisps of methane that race around the blue giant at supersonic speeds. In the absolute cold of the outer system, those clouds are participating in a dance of light and shadow that has no audience but the stars. They are not rushing toward a finish line. They are simply moving, because that is what gas and light do when they are held in the arms of a great planet. We can learn from that movement. We can allow our minds to drift with the same ease, moving through the currents of our imagination without needing to arrive anywhere. We are safe in the flow. The unfinished nature of the atmosphere and light reminds us that the universe is a place of infinite patience. It doesn't need to reach a final state of perfection because the process of change is itself a form of perfection. The light that fades from your window tonight is not gone. It is simply moving on to illuminate another part of the story. The air you breathe is a gift from a system that is still growing, still learning, and still providing for its children. You can trust this process. You can let go of the day and sink into the supportive embrace of a world that knows exactly how to take care of itself. As the night grows deeper and the silence becomes a physical presence, let yourself feel the weight of this cosmic chemistry. You are a participant in a magnificent, slow-motion transformation. You are made of the same atoms that swirl in the storms of Jupiter and the mists of Venus. You are an expression of the sun's light and the earth's breath. By resting now, you are allowing your own internal chemistry to settle, to find its own quiet balance in the dark. The solar system will continue its beautiful, unfinished work while you sleep, weaving a tapestry of light and gas that will be waiting for you when you wake. The lingering secrets of the moon's pale face. As we look up at the moon, it is perhaps the most familiar sight in our lives, a constant companion that has watched over the earth since the very beginning of our journey. We often perceive the moon as a finished object, a desolate and dusty sphere whose story was written and concluded in a single ancient moment of collision. However, if we look closer, past the craters and the vast dark seas of basalt, we find that the moon is still very much a part of the solar system's unfinished architecture. It is not a dead world, but a world that is still slowly, patiently drifting away from us, a rhythmic retreat that changes the very balance of our planet with every passing year. This slow migration is one of the most poetic examples of the system's lack of finality. The relationship between the Earth and its satellite is a long-distance conversation that is still evolving. When the moon was first formed, it was much closer to our world, a massive, glowing presence that dominated the night sky and exerted a fierce gravitational pull on our early oceans. Over billions of years, that energy has been traded back and forth, and the moon has used it to push itself further out into the dark. It moves away from us at a rate of about 4 centimeters per year, roughly the same speed at which your fingernails grow. It is a change so subtle that it is impossible to see with the naked eye. Yet it is a profound testament to the fact that the geometry of our home is not fixed. The moon is seeking its own space, slowly lengthening its orbit, and in doing so, subtly slowing down the rotation of the Earth. Our days are becoming infinitesimally longer, our nights more stretched as the moon continues its patient departure. This unfinished movement influences everything from the tides to the stability of our planet's tilt. We often take the seasons for granted, but they are held in place by this delicate gravitational embrace. If the moon were finished with its journey, if it had reached a final frozen position, the Earth might wobble more violently, leading to erratic shifts in climate over millions of years. Instead, we are part of a slow, stabilizing dance. The moon's retreat is a form of cosmic fine-tuning, a gradual adjustment that keeps our world habitable even as the arrangement of the stars shifts. It is a reminder that stability does not come from standing still. It comes from moving together in a predictable, rhythmic way. The surface of the moon itself also remains a work in progress. While there is no wind to blow away the dust and no rain to wash the craters, the moon is constantly being reshaped by the gardening of the cosmos. Every day, microscopic meteorites rain down on the lunar surface, grinding the rocks into a fine, glassy powder called regolith. This process is so slow that a footprint left by an astronaut might remain for 1 million years, but on the scale of the solar system's life, it is a constant, transformative weathering. The moon is being slowly resurfaced, layer by layer, by the debris of the space it travels through. It is a record keeper of the system's history, but it is also a participant in its present. There is also the quiet, lingering mystery of the moon's interior. We are discovering that the moon may not be entirely solid and cold. Deep within, there are hints of a remaining warmth, a core that might still be slightly fluid, responding to the gravitational tug of the Earth. This internal tide suggests that the moon is still feeling the influence of its parent planet, a heartbeat that refuses to go completely silent. It reminds us that even when things look still and lifeless on the outside, there is often a hidden depth of activity beneath the surface. The moon is not a fossil. It is a world with a memory, and that memory is still being shaped by the forces of the present. As you consider the moon tonight, imagine it not as a distant rock, but as a silent guardian that is slowly, gracefully taking its leave. There is no sadness in its departure, only a sense of cosmic order. It is moving toward its own destiny, just as we are moving toward ours. This slow-motion farewell is a beautiful metaphor for the way things change in our own lives, rarely with a sudden break, but with a gentle, persistent growth that takes us exactly where we need to be. The moon's path is a lesson in patience. It does not rush to the edge of the system. It takes billions of years to move even a small distance, trusting in the laws of gravity to guide it. The silver light that filters through your window is a reflection of this unfinished story. It is light that has traveled from the sun, bounced off a world in motion, and finally reached your eyes. It connects you to the deep time of the universe. You can let the steady, unchanging presence of the moon's glow act as a tether for your thoughts. Even as the moon drifts, it remains a constant in our sky, a symbol of the balance between movement and stability. You can trust that the world is being held in a safe, careful grip, even if that grip is slowly changing its shape. When we settle into the stillness of the night, we can let our own sense of unfinished business fall away. We often feel the need to conclude every thought and resolve every problem before we can sleep, but the moon teaches us that we can be in the middle of a billion-year migration and still be at peace. We can be works in progress. We can be drifting towards something new without knowing exactly when we will arrive. Like the lunar dust, our experiences settle slowly, forming a landscape of memory that is both ancient and new. Imagine the silence on the lunar plains, a silence so deep it feels like a physical weight. There is no sound of air, only the magnificent, heavy stillness of a world that has all the time it needs. You can invite that same silence into your own space. Let it fill the corners of your room and the spaces between your breaths. You are part of the same grand, slow-motion architecture that governs the moon and the stars. You are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to be in motion. And as the moon continues its patient journey through the velvet dark, you can allow yourself to drift into the quiet, supportive embrace of sleep, knowing that the story of the universe and your own story is far from over. The hidden breath of frozen moons. As we travel further from the Sun, away from the familiar rocky surfaces of the inner worlds, we encounter a territory where the definition of a finished world becomes even more blurred and mysterious. In the orbits of Jupiter and Saturn, there exist moons that defy our expectations of what a celestial body should be. These are the ice worlds, Enceladus, Europa, and Ganymede, worlds that, on the surface, appear to be nothing more than frozen, shattered marbles. But beneath their shells of ancient ice, there is an unfinished secret, vast, dark oceans of liquid water that are kept warm by the rhythmic, invisible tug of gravity. These moons are not mere satellites, they are internal laboratories where the ingredients for something entirely new are being stirred in the dark. We often think of life and activity as being products of the sun's warmth, a finished gift given to the planets near the center of the system. But these distant moons suggest that the solar system has a secondary, hidden way of generating energy. Through a process known as tidal heating, the massive gravity of the giant planets kneads the interiors of these moons like a baker working dough. This friction creates heat, and that heat keeps the water liquid, miles beneath a crust of ice that is as hard as granite. This means that the habitable zone of our system is not a fixed ring around the sun, but an unfinished, expanding map. There are pockets of warmth and liquid scattered throughout the cold, quiet reaches of the outer system, places where the story of geology and perhaps even biology is still in its very earliest, unwritten chapters. When we look at the surface of Europa, we see a chaotic network of cracks and ridges, a landscape that looks like a frozen jigsaw puzzle that has been put together in the wrong order. These cracks are a sign of the moon's unfinished state. They are the result of the ice shell flexing and breaking as the ocean beneath it pulses with the tides. The surface is constantly being renewed, with fresh ice welling up from below to fill the gaps. It is a world that is literally turning itself inside out, a slow-motion metabolism that keeps the moon from ever becoming a static, dead object. There is no final version of Europa's map, because the map is rewritten with every orbit. In this deep, pressurized dark, there is a profound sense of potential. We do not know what is happening in those hidden oceans, and in many ways, the mystery is more comforting than a definitive answer. It suggests that the solar system is still full of surprises, still holding on to its most precious secrets. These moons are like seeds that have been planted in the deep freeze of space, waiting for the slow passage of eons to reveal what they might become. They remind us that the most significant parts of a person or a world are often the parts that are hidden from view. The surface may be cold and scarred, but the interior can be warm, fluid, and full of life. This internal warmth is a testament to the persistence of energy in an unfinished universe. It shows us that even in the most unlikely places, the laws of physics are working to create pockets of stability and growth. As you settle into your own warmth tonight, you can think of yourself as one of these worlds. Your outer life may be subject to the cold winds of the world, to the cracks and scars of daily experience, but within you, there is a deep and quiet ocean of peace that remains untouched. You are a work in progress, with hidden depths that are still being explored and understood. You don't need to be finished to be a place of immense value and mystery. Imagine the sound of the ice on Enceladus, the deep, resonant groaning of a crust that is miles thick, shifting under the influence of Saturn's massive weight. There are geysers on Enceladus that spray fine plumes of water ice into space, creating a faint, ghostly ring of crystals around the planet. This is the moon breathing. It is an exhalation of the hidden ocean, a way for the interior to touch the stars. It is a beautiful, rhythmic process that has been happening for millions of years and will continue for millions more. It is not a crisis or an event. It is simply the way the moon exists. There is a lesson in this patient activity. We often feel that if we aren't making visible progress, we are standing still. But the ice moons show us that the most important work is often the most subtle. The slow heating of an ocean, the gradual shifting of an ice sheet, the quiet spray of a geyser. These are the actions that define a world's life. We can allow our own growth to be just as slow and just as hidden. We can trust that the tidal forces of our own lives, our relationships, our reflections, our quiet moments of rest, are doing the work of keeping our hearts warm and our spirits fluid. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, let your mind sink beneath the ice of these distant moons. Imagine the absolute darkness of the lunar oceans, a darkness that is not empty but full of the gentle movement of water. There is no light there, but there is a sense of immense supportive pressure. It is a place where you can let go of the need to see or to know. You can simply be, held in the liquid embrace of a world that is still finding its way. The silence of the deep ocean is a reflection of the silence you are seeking now. A silence that is not a void, but a presence. The solar system is a vast, unfinished house with many rooms, and some of those rooms are still locked, waiting for the right moment to be opened. These frozen moons are the treasure chests of our neighborhood, keeping their secrets safe until the time is right. By resting now, you are participating in that same culture of patience. You are allowing your own secrets to rest, your own potential to remain tucked away in the warm dark of your subconscious. You are safe in the unfinished architecture of the night, a traveler in a system that values the journey far more than the destination. The slow dance of interstellar dust, beyond the reach of the giant planets, where the sun's light begins to lose its warmth and becomes just another bright star in a crowded field. There exists a subtle and unfinished boundary called the heliopause. We often imagine the solar system as a bubble with a hard edge, like a glass ornament floating in a dark room. But the truth is much more fluid and gentle. Our system is currently traveling through a vast cloud of interstellar gas and dust, known as the local interstellar cloud. This is not an empty void, but a thin, ethereal mist of ancient matter, the remnants of stars that lived and died long before our own sun was born. As we move through this cloud at incredible speeds, the walls of our solar bubble are constantly being reshaped, compressed, and expanded. It is a soft, invisible collision, an unfinished negotiation between the breath of our sun and the breath of the galaxy. This interaction is a reminder that the solar system is not an isolated island. but a voyager. The dust that drifts in from the galaxy is not just debris. It is the raw material of the future. Some of these tiny microscopic grains find their way past the sun's magnetic shield and into the heart of our system. They carry with them the chemical signatures of distant parts of the Milky Way, bringing new information and new matter to our doorstep. This means that even now, billions of years after the planets formed, the composition of our neighborhood is still being subtly altered. We are constantly breathing in the galaxy, a slow inhalation that ensures the story of our system never becomes a closed loop. When we think of space, we often think of something cold and unchanging. But this interstellar mist is dynamic. It responds to the passage of stars and the ripples of distant supernovae. There is a quiet, ongoing speculation among those who track these movements that our journey through this particular cloud is a temporary phase, a cosmic season that might last for another 10 or 20,000 years. Eventually, we will emerge into a different part of the galaxy, a clearer or perhaps denser patch of space, and the boundaries of our system will shift once again. This is the ultimate definition of an unfinished journey. We are not just orbiting the sun. The sun itself is orbiting the center of the galaxy, carrying us through a landscape that is constantly changing. There is a profound peace in this idea of the solar system as a traveler. It suggests that we don't need to have a fixed, unmoving home to be safe. We are held in the protective embrace of the sun's magnetic field, a glowing chariot that carries us through the dark. This field is not a rigid cage, but a flexible, shimmering veil that dances in the wind of the stars. It reminds us that our own boundaries, the limits we place on our lives, our thoughts, and our potential, are also more flexible than we think. We are allowed to move through the world, to take in new experiences, and to let our edges be reshaped by the journey. As you lie in the quiet of the night, imagine this invisible wind of the galaxy brushing against the far reaches of our system. It is a movement so vast and so slow that it defies human measurement. Yet it is as real as the air moving through your room. You can feel a sense of connection to this larger movement. You are not just a person in a bed, in a house, on a planet. You are a passenger on a magnificent, star-bound vessel that is currently navigating the currents of the Milky Way. The unfinished nature of our path is not a lack of direction, but an abundance of possibility. The dust that drifts between the stars is like the thoughts that drift through our minds as we fall asleep. Some of them are old, remnants of things that happened long ago. Others are new, sparked by the experiences of the day. They don't need to be organized or filed away. They can simply drift, colliding softly, merging and fading into the background. The galaxy doesn't hurry to clear its clouds, and we don't need to hurry to clear our minds. We can allow the interstellar mist of our consciousness to be exactly as it is, vast, mysterious, and full of quiet potential. This perspective changes the way we view the darkness. The dark is not an empty space, it is a medium. It is the fabric through which we travel, a velvet ocean that supports the weight of the stars. When we turn off the lights, we are not losing the world. We are simply entering the same state as the rest of the system, a state of quiet, focused movement. In the dark, the distractions of the surface fade away. and we can feel the deeper rhythms of the journey. We can trust the sun to lead the way, and we can trust the gravity of our own being to keep us grounded and safe. The unfinished architecture of the solar system is a testament to the fact that the universe is never bored. It is always tinkering, always adjusting, always looking for a new way to arrange its pieces. This constant creativity is a form of love, a commitment to the process of existence. By embracing the unfinished parts of our own lives, we are aligning ourselves with the very nature of the cosmos. We are accepting that we are works in progress and that there is beauty in the not yet known. As the night deepens, let your breath become as steady and as deep as the movement of the sun through the stars. Feel the supportive pressure of the earth beneath you, a solid platform in the midst of this grand migration. You are part of a system that knows how to navigate the dark, a system that has been traveling for billions of years without ever losing its way. You can let go of the wheel. You can allow yourself to be carried. The galaxy is vast, the journey is long, and there is more than enough time for everything to find its place. Imagine the very edge of our solar bubble, where the golden light of the sun finally meets the blue-tinted cold of the interstellar deep. There is a shimmering, a soft vibration where the two forces meet. It is a place of absolute stillness and absolute motion, a perfect balance of power. You can find that same balance within yourself tonight. You are the meeting point of the past and the future, of the known and the unknown. You are safe in the middle of this unfinished masterpiece. Let the silence of the stars fill your room, and let the slow, rhythmic pulse of the galaxy guide you into a deep and restorative sleep. The slow gathering of the Oort cloud. As we move our awareness even further out, past the shimmering boundaries of the sun's magnetic breath, we reach the most mysterious and unfinished neighborhood of our solar family, the Oort cloud. This is not a disk like the planets, nor a ring like the Kuiper belt. It is a vast, spherical shell of icy fragments that envelops everything we know in a quiet, frozen embrace. If the solar system is a house, the Oort cloud is the distant, misty forest that surrounds it, a place so vast and so sparse that its members may go millions of years without ever seeing their nearest neighbor. Here, the sun is no longer a warm orb, but a brilliant, tiny point of light, a distant anchor holding on to these frozen wanderers with the thinnest of gravitational threads. This region represents the ultimate, unfinished frontier, a collection of primordial leftovers that have been drifting in a state of suspended animation since the very first days of our system's birth. The story of the Oort cloud is one of incredible patience. These icy bodies, some the size of small cities, others as large as mountain ranges, were not born in the outer dark. They were likely created much closer to the sun, near the growing giants like Jupiter and Neptune. In the chaotic adolescence of the system, as the massive planets migrated and searched for their orbits, they acted like cosmic slingshots, flinging trillions of these icy fragments out into the deep. Some were cast out into the interstellar void to wander forever, but others were caught in a delicate balance, trapped on the very edge of the sun's influence. This was not a sudden event. but a slow-motion dispersal that took hundreds of millions of years to settle into the sphere we see today. And yet, scientists suggest this cloud is still not a finished structure. It is constantly being replenished and reshaped by the gravity of the galaxy itself. In this distant realm, the unfinished nature of the system is visible in the way these objects respond to the stars. Every so often, a passing star, a distant neighbor in the Milky Way, wanders close enough to our system to exert a tiny, ghostly tug on the Oort cloud. This stellar tide is enough to nudge a few of these frozen travelers, causing them to fall back toward the inner solar system. This is how comets are born. They are messengers from the unfinished past, falling toward the warmth of the sun for the very first time after 4 billion years of waiting. To watch a comet in the night sky is to witness the system still processing its ancient materials, still cleaning up the remnants of its construction. It is a reminder that the work of the sun is never truly done. It is always reaching back into its history to pull forward something new. There is a profound, meditative quality to the existence of an Oort cloud object. Life there is defined by the absence of urgency. An orbit can take millions of years. In that time, civilizations on Earth might rise and fall. The continents might shift their positions, and the sun itself will have traveled a significant distance through the galaxy. To be a part of the Oort cloud is to exist in the deep time of the universe, where the passage of a century is like the blink of an eye. This scale of time is a powerful antidote to the rush of our daily lives. It tells us that there is room for the slow, the quiet, and the distant. It suggests that not everything needs to be used or settled right now. Some things are allowed to just exist, floating in the dark, waiting for a gravitational whisper that may not come for an eon. As you settle deeper into your rest, you can imagine yourself as one of these distant, icy wanderers. You are far from the noise and heat of the inner world. There is no wind here, no friction, and no pressure to perform. You are held in a state of perfect, weightless equilibrium. The light of the distant sun is enough to guide you, but not enough to disturb your peace. In this space, the unfinished parts of your own life feel small and manageable. You don't need to be in the center of the action to be part of the system. You don't need to be moving quickly to be on a path. You're part of the grand, spherical architecture of the night, a silent guardian of the system's oldest memories. This distant frontier also teaches us about the interconnectedness of all things. The Oort cloud is the bridge between our sun and the rest of the Milky Way. It is where the inside meets the outside, a place of transition where the materials of our system mingle with the chemistry of the stars. It reminds us that our boundaries are not walls, but horizons, places where we can look out and see that we are part of something much larger. We are not just residents of a planet. We are citizens of a galaxy that is still growing, still shifting, and still finding its form. The unfinished nature of the Oort cloud is a reflection of the unfinished nature of the galaxy itself. Imagine the silence of a comet as it begins its long, lonely fall toward the sun. It has no engine, no voice, and no destination other than the one dictated by the laws of physics. It is a passenger of gravity, trusting in the invisible curves of space-time to lead it through the dark. You can adopt that same trust tonight. You can let go of the need to control your trajectory. You can allow the gravity of your own tiredness to pull you slowly and surely toward the center of your rest. Like the comet, you are a traveler through time and space, moving toward a moment of warmth and light that will eventually arrive in its own time. The solar system is a masterpiece that is still being painted, and the Oort cloud is the broad, misty background that gives the whole work its depth and perspective. Without this unfinished edge, the system would feel small and enclosed. But with it, we have a sense of infinite room to breathe. We can look out into the dark and know that there is always more to discover, more to experience, and more to become. You are safe in this vastness. You are a part of the slow, beautiful gather of ice and light that defines our home. Let the cold, quiet peace of the Oort cloud settle over you like a soft blanket, and let the distant, steady light of the stars watch over your dreams, the slow breath of the sun's pulsing heart. While we have looked to the distant edges and the shifting crusts of planets to see the unfinished nature of our system, we must eventually turn our gaze toward the very source of it all, the sun. We often speak of the sun as a constant, a permanent and unchanging light that provides a fixed center for our lives. But in the eyes of deep time, the sun is a dynamic, evolving entity, a massive golden engine that is still fine-tuning its own internal furnace. It is currently in its middle age, a period of relative stability, yet it is far from a finished product. Every second, the sun is fundamentally changing, losing mass as it converts matter into light. And in doing so, it is slowly rewriting the gravitational rules of the entire solar system. It is a star in a state of perpetual transformation, a pulsing heart that dictates the rhythm of an unfinished symphony. The sun's life is a delicate balance between the inward crush of its own massive gravity and the outward push of its nuclear fire. This balance, however, is not a static one. As the sun consumes its hydrogen fuel, its core becomes denser and slightly hotter, causing the star to gradually brighten over millions of years. This means that the sunlight we feel today is not the same as the sunlight that warmed the Earth a billion years ago, and it will be different again in the distant future. This slow-motion brightening is an unfinished process that subtly shifts the boundaries of everything in the system. It is a gentle, persistent pressure that forces the planets to adapt, moving the sweet spot of life's possibility outward, millimeter by millimeter. We are living in a moment of a much larger, unfolding solar biography. Beyond its light, the sun's physical presence is also a work in progress. It is surrounded by a vast, complex atmosphere called the corona, which is strangely much hotter than the surface itself. This atmosphere is constantly expanding into space, creating the solar wind, a stream of charged particles that bathes the entire system. This wind is not a steady breeze. It is a turbulent, shifting current that responds to the sun's internal magnetic cycles. Every 11 years, the sun's magnetic poles flip in a slow, rhythmic dance, causing the star to go through periods of activity and calm. This cycle is like the breathing of the system, a regular inhalation and exhalation of magnetic energy that reshapes the auroras, influences the atmospheres of the planets, and reminds us that our star is a living, vibrating thing. This ongoing magnetic evolution is one of the most mysterious and unfinished parts of our solar story. We are still learning how the sun's deep interior generates these fields, and how they, in turn, protect or challenge the worlds that orbit it. There is a quiet, steady effort in the scientific community to understand this space weather not just as a series of events, but as a continuous process of system-wide adjustment. The sun is still teaching us its language, still revealing the ways it connects the smallest dust grain in the Kuiper belt to the massive heart of the system. It is a conversation that has been going on for 4.5 billion years, and it is nowhere near its conclusion. As you lie in the quiet of the night, you can think of the sun's light as a long-distance message that is still being written. Even after the sun has set on your part of the world, its influence remains. It holds the Earth in its orbit, it keeps the outer moons warm, and its magnetic shield protects us from the harsh radiation of the galaxy. This constant, quiet labor is a form of love, a commitment to the stability and growth of the entire family of worlds. You can feel a sense of security in this. You are being looked after by a star that knows exactly how to pace itself, a star that understands the value of a slow and steady burn. The sun's lack of finality is also visible in its physical loss. As it shines, it sheds millions of tons of its own mass every second through the solar wind and light. This means the sun is literally getting lighter as it ages. As it loses mass, its gravitational grip on the planets becomes infinitesimally weaker, allowing the planets to drift very slowly outward. This is another layer of the planetary migration we discussed earlier, a slow-motion expansion of the entire system as the central anchor itself evolves. The solar system is like a flower that is very slowly opening its petals, spreading out into the dark as it matures. It is a beautiful, expansive thought to hold as you drift toward sleep. Imagine the sun's surface as a vast, roiling ocean of golden plasma, where great loops of fire rise and fall in the silence of the vacuum. There is no sound there, only the magnificent, heavy vibration of energy. This is the source of all the movement and life in our neighborhood. It is a place of immense power, yet it is governed by laws that are patient and predictable. The sun doesn't rush its nuclear reactions. It doesn't try to shine its brightest all at once. It manages its energy with a cosmic wisdom that allows it to last for billions of years. We can learn from this solar patience. We can allow our own energy to settle, our own nuclear fire to dim for the night, trusting that there is plenty of light left for tomorrow. In the darkness of your room, you are resting in the shadow of the earth, but you are still within the reach of the sun's gravitational hand. You are part of the solar family, a participant in the long-term project of a maturing star. By resting now, you are aligning your own rhythms with the cycles of the sun. You are giving yourself permission to be quiet, to cool down, and to prepare for the next beat of the system's heart. The sun will continue its slow, magnificent transformation while you sleep, and when you wake, it will be there to offer its unfinished light once again. The solar system is not a finished gallery, but a living, breathing house, and the sun is the warm, steady pulse at its center. It reminds us that even the most powerful things in the universe are subject to change and growth. It tells us that being unfinished is the secret to longevity. As you sink into the supportive embrace of your bed, let the thought of the sun's patient heart fill you with a sense of peace. You are safe. You are part of a grand, glowing journey. And as the earth continues its slow turn, you can allow yourself to drift into the warm, quiet dark of sleep, held in the balance of a star that is still finding its way. The fragile grace of the gas giant's rings. As we venture back out toward the majestic realm of the outer planets, we find that the grandest structures in our system, the rings of the gas giants, are perhaps the most poignant examples of the unfinished. We often treat Saturn's rings as a permanent, solid crown, but in the long memory of the cosmos, they are more like a passing mist, a temporary adornment that captures a fleeting moment of gravitational history. To look at the rings is to see a world in the middle of a grand, icy transformation, a place where millions of individual fragments of water ice are being continuously sorted, sculpted, and reclaimed. This is not a finished monument, but a living, breathing disk of light that tells us that even the most massive planets are subject to seasons of change that span hundreds of millions of years. The rings are a symphony of smallness. Each shimmering band is composed of countless particles, some no larger than a speck of dust, others as massive as a skyscraper, all orbiting in a perfect, flat plane. They are the remnants of a moon, or perhaps several moons, that wandered too close to the giant's reach and were gently dismantled by the invisible hands of tidal forces. This process of dismantling is never truly over. Within the rings, gravity is still at work, preventing the ice from ever clumping back together into a single moon, yet simultaneously herding the particles into the intricate gaps and waves we observe through our telescopes. It is a state of perpetual in-between, a moon that is no longer a moon, but not yet a part of the planet's atmosphere. It is a masterpiece of fragmentation, where every collision between icy grains is a tiny, quiet step in an ongoing evolution. In recent years, our understanding of these rings has shifted from a sense of permanence to a sense of delicate transience. We have begun to observe a phenomenon known as ring rain, where the planet's magnetic field and gravity pull the smallest particles out of the rings and draw them down into the swirling clouds below. Saturn is, quite literally, drinking its own rings. This process is so slow that it will take hundreds of millions of years for the rings to vanish entirely. But the fact that it is happening at all changes how we perceive the giant. It is not a static king sitting on a throne. It is a world in the middle of a long, slow meal, a planet that is gradually reclaiming the material that once orbited it. The rings are a temporary gift of time and physics, a beautiful accident that we happen to be here to witness. This unfinished nature extends to the other giants as well. Jupiter Uranus, and Neptune all possess ring systems, but theirs are dark, thin, and ethereal, ghostly echoes compared to the brilliance of Saturn's. These rings may be the ancient, fading remains of once great structures, or they may be the fresh, sparse beginnings of new ones. They remind us that the solar system has a rhythm of creation and dissolution that we are only beginning to grasp. And a planet might go through several ring cycles in its multi-billion-year life, shedding its old ornaments and gathering new ones as moons drift or collide. The architecture of the giants is never settled. It is a fluid, evolving design that responds to the passage of eons. As you allow your mind to drift toward these icy circles, imagine the sheer silence of that environment. There is no air to carry sound, only the soft, rhythmic clicking of ice against ice as the particles jostle for position. The light of the sun, softened by the distance, reflects off millions of frozen surfaces, creating a glow that is both cold and comforting. In this space, there is no rush. There is no deadline for the rings to disappear or for the planet to finish its reclamation. Everything is happening at the pace of gravity, which is to say, the pace of eternity. You can find a similar pace within yourself as you prepare for sleep. You don't need to finish your own rings of thought tonight. You can allow them to drift, to collide softly, and to slowly settle into the quiet background of your mind. The rings also teach us about the power of perspective. From a distance, they look like a solid, unmoving disk, a perfect circle of light. But as you get closer, you see that they are made of chaos, trillions of independent pieces, moving at different speeds, constantly shifting and changing. Our lives often feel the same way. From the outside, or in our memories, things might look settled and solid, but in the moment, they can feel fragmented and unfinished. The lesson of the rings is that both are true. The chaos of the particles creates the beauty of the whole. Your own unfinished thoughts and unresolved moments are the particles that make up the shimmering ring of your life. You don't need to force them into a solid shape. Their movement and their fragmentation are what make the whole thing so spectacular. Imagine a small shepherd moon, a tiny world no more than a few miles wide, gliding along the edge of a vast gap in the rings. Its gravity is just strong enough to nudge the icy particles back into place, keeping the edge of the ring sharp and clean. This moon is a quiet caretaker, a humble participant in the system's ongoing maintenance. It doesn't build the rings, and it doesn't destroy them. It simply guides them. You can be your own shepherd moon tonight. You don't need to solve the big questions or rebuild your world. You can simply nudge your thoughts gently toward the edge of sleep, maintaining the boundary between the day's activities and the night's rest. You can trust the gravity of your own tiredness to keep things in their proper place. As the silence of the night deepens, let the image of the ring stay with you, a vast, icy halo moving in the dark, unhurried and magnificent. They are a reminder that the most beautiful things in the universe are often the most fleeting, and that temporary can still mean millions of years. You are safe in the midst of this change. You are part of a system that knows how to create beauty from dust and how to find order in fragmentation. By resting now, you are allowing your own rings to find their natural rhythm, to cool down in the shadow of the earth and to prepare for the slow golden light of another day. The solar system is not a finished gallery, but a workshop where the tools are gravity and time, and the materials are ice and light. It is a place where nothing is ever truly lost, only rearranged. The rings of the giants are a testament to this ongoing creativity, a sign that the universe is still playing with its building blocks, still finding new ways to surprise itself. As you sink into the supportive embrace of your bed, let go of the need for finality. Embrace the unfinished. Trust the process. And let the quiet, shimmering dance of the rings guide you into a deep and restorative sleep, the patient drift of the great red spot. If we turn our focus back toward Jupiter, the undisputed king of our solar family, we find one of the most mesmerizing examples of the unfinished in the entire cosmos. The great red spot, this colossal storm, a swirling crimson eye that has gazed out into the dark for at least 300 years, is often used as a symbol of permanence and power. We think of it as a fixed feature of the planet, as reliable as a continent on Earth. But in the slow, unfolding narrative of a gas giant, the great red spot is a temporary breath, a magnificent atmospheric gesture that is currently in the middle of a long, graceful contraction. It is an unfinished storm, a reminder that on a world made of gas and wind, even the greatest monuments are fluid and subject to the quiet erosion of time. Since we first began measuring it with precision, the great red spot has been shrinking. Once large enough to swallow 3 Earths side by side, it has now narrowed until it can barely contain one. It is changing shape too, shifting from a wide oval into a more circular form, and its color fluctuates from a deep brick red to a pale salmon pink. This is not a sign of a dying storm, but rather a world-sized system finding a new equilibrium. The atmosphere of Jupiter is a vast, interconnected ocean of energy, and the great red spot is a massive whirlpool within that ocean. It is still being fed by the smaller storms and jet streams that surround it, yet it is also shedding its energy back into the planet's wider circulation. It is a work in progress, a titanic eddy that is slowly, patiently deciding what its next form will be. This ongoing transformation changes how we view the giants. We often imagine them as finished, static balls of gas, but they are more like living, breathing laboratories of physics. Every swirl in Jupiter's clouds, every white oval and brown barge, is a participant in a multi-century conversation about heat and motion. The great red spot is merely the loudest voice in that conversation. By watching it change, we are witnessing the solar system's refusal to be done. It is a place where even the most massive features are allowed to evolve, to fade, and eventually to be replaced by something new. There is a deep, resonant peace in this lack of permanence. It suggests that nothing, no matter how grand, is required to stay the same forever. Inside the storm, the winds howl at hundreds of miles per hour, yet the movement is so vast that from a distance it appears perfectly still. This is the ultimate comfort of the deep system, that even within the heart of a great disturbance there is a rhythm and a balance. The storm is not chaotic, It is governed by the precise laws of fluid dynamics. It is an unfinished masterpiece of geometry and color, a place where the planet's internal heat meets the cold of space and creates something spectacular. As you settle into your own stillness tonight, you can imagine your own worries as storms on a distant giant. They may feel large and swirling right now, but in the vast scale of your life, they are shifting, changing, and eventually finding their way toward a new, quieter shape. There's a quiet dignity in the way the great red spot takes its time to change. It doesn't dissolve in a day or a year. It takes centuries to move even a fraction of its width. It operates on a timeline that respects the scale of the planet it inhabits. We can adopt this same sense of temporal grace. We often feel that if we don't solve our problems or change our habits immediately, we have failed. But the universe doesn't work that way. The universe is comfortable with transitions that last for generations. It allows for the slow contraction of a storm and the gradual shift of a jet stream. You can allow yourself that same luxury of time. You are a living system, and like Jupiter, you are allowed to evolve at your own natural pace. Imagine the deep, resonant hum of Jupiter's magnetosphere, a field of energy so massive it would be the largest object in the sky if our eyes could see it. Within this field, the great red spot continues its slow rotation, a silent crimson wheel turning in the dark. There is no sound of wind there, only the magnificent, heavy vibration of a world in motion. You can let that vibration act as a lullaby for your thoughts. It is a steady, predictable pulse that has been beating for eons. It is the sound of a system that knows how to take care of itself. A system that doesn't need to be finished to be perfect. As the night wraps around you, let the image of the great storm stay with you, not as a symbol of turmoil, but as a symbol of endurance. It has survived for centuries by being flexible, by changing its shape and its size to match the conditions of the planet. You are doing the same. You are adapting, growing, and finding your own equilibrium. By resting now, you are allowing your own atmospheric energy to settle, your own internal storms to find their place in the larger circulation of your peace. The world will continue its slow, beautiful work while you sleep, and when you wake, you will find that you are still part of a story that is beautifully, gracefully unfinished. The solar system is a place where the big and the slow are the same thing. Whether it is a planet migrating across the dark or a storm shrinking over centuries, the message is the same. There is no rush. There is only the process. And in that process, there is a profound and lasting safety. Let the silence of Jupiter's clouds fill your room, and let the steady, rhythmic pulse of the great red spot guide you into a deep and restorative sleep, knowing that you are exactly where you need to be in the grand, unfinished architecture of the night, the slow breath of volcanic moons. While we have spent time reflecting on the icy reaches and the great gaseous storms, there is another, much warmer dimension to the unfinished nature of our solar system. We often think of volcanic activity as something belonging to the ancient past of our Earth, or perhaps a finished chapter on a cooling planet. But if we look to Io, one of the inner moons of Jupiter, we find a world that is undergoing a constant, radical, an incredibly patient rebirth. Io is the most geologically active object in our system, a world that is literally turning itself inside out every few thousand years. It is an unfinished landscape in the most literal sense, where the ground you might have stood on yesterday is being buried under fresh lava today, and where the mountains themselves are temporary ripples in a crust that is too restless to ever settle. This incredible activity is not a random occurrence, but the result of a long-term gravitational tug-of-war. Io is caught between the massive pull of Jupiter and the rhythmic nudges of its sister moons, Europa and Ganymede. This constant squeezing and stretching, known as tidal heating, generates an enormous amount of internal friction. The moon's interior is kept in a state of molten fluidity, a liquid heart that is constantly seeking a way to the surface. On Io, the process of becoming a planet is happening at an accelerated pace, yet it remains governed by the same slow, celestial laws that move the stars. It is a world of hundreds of active volcanoes, some of which blast plumes of sulfur hundreds of miles into the blackness of space. What makes this truly part of an unfinished architecture is the way Io interacts with the space around it. The material ejected from its volcanoes doesn't just fall back to the surface. Much of it escapes into Jupiter's massive magnetic field, forming a giant donut-shaped cloud of charged particles called a plasma torus. This cloud is an extension of the moon itself, a ghostly, invisible limb that stretches around the entire planet. Through this connection, Io is breathing into the Jovian system, feeding the massive auroras that dance at Jupiter's poles and altering the very environment of the space through which it travels. It is a reminder that a world's influence doesn't stop at its surface. We are all connected to the spaces we inhabit by invisible threads of energy and matter, contributing to a larger system that is still finding its balance. There is a strange, rugged peace in the landscape of Io. Despite the heat and the fire, it is a world of immense silence and scale. The mountains there are not formed by the slow movement of tectonic plates as they are on Earth, but by the colossal weight of new lava pushing down on the old, causing the crust to buckle and rise into jagged, towering peaks. These mountains are temporary. In the deep time of the system, they will be melted back into the interior and recycled into something new. This constant state of flux tells us that there is no final version of a world. Stability can be found in the cycle itself, in the knowledge that the energy will always find a way to express itself. As you consider this restless moon, you can reflect on the volcanic nature of your own life, the passions, the changes, and the constant inner movements that keep you from becoming stagnant. We often fear change because it feels like a disruption of our finished selves. But Io teaches us that change is the very mechanism of life. It is the way a system stays warm. It is the way a world avoids becoming a cold, dead rock. You are allowed to have an interior that is still shifting. You're allowed to be a work in progress, constantly erupting with new ideas, new feelings, and new ways of being. This is not a state of chaos. It is a state of vitality. Imagine the sight of an Ionian plume, a silent, umbrella-shaped fountain of sulfur ice. rising against the backdrop of a massive, banded Jupiter. There is no sound of an explosion, only the graceful, weightless arc of matter as it follows the curve of gravity. It is a beautiful, slow-motion ballet of geology. You can let that image act as a focus for your own inner calm. Even the most powerful forces can be expressed with grace and silence. You don't need to be loud to be significant. You don't need to be finished to be magnificent. In the quiet of your room, you are far from the fires of Io, yet you are part of the same physical laws. The heat that moves the moon is a cousin to the warmth in your own blood, and the gravity that shapes the mountains is the same force that pulls you toward the comfort of your pillows. We are all participants in this grand, unfinished experiment. We are all made of the same stardust, and we are all being shaped by the same patient hands of time. As the night deepens, let the restless energy of the day subside. Imagine it being recycled, just like the crust of Io, into the deep, quiet interior of your mind. You are entering a state of rest, but even in sleep, your story is continuing. Your brain is sorting, your body is healing, and your spirit is preparing for the next chapter. You are a world in transition, a masterpiece in the making. Let the golden light of the distant sun and the rhythmic pulse of the giant planets watch over you as you drift into the deep, supportive dark. The solar system is a place of infinite patience, and tonight, you can share in that patience. You don't need to know the end of the story. You don't need to see the finished map. You can simply be a passenger on a warm and living world, moving through a universe that is still deciding what it wants to be when it grows up. Sleep now and let the slow, beautiful work of the cosmos continue in the silence of the night. The slow breath of the sun's distant neighborhood. As we move our focus beyond the individual worlds and their local dances, we must consider the very space they inhabit, the medium that holds them together. We often think of the space between planets as a static, empty theater, a finished stage where the actors perform their orbits. But the void of our solar system is actually a living, breathing environment filled with the heliosphere, a vast magnetic bubble blown by the sun. This bubble is the sun's extended atmosphere, and it is currently engaged in a slow, unfinished negotiation with the rest of the galaxy. It is a protective shield, but it is also a flexible one, expanding and contracting as the sun moves through different patches of interstellar gas. This means that the walls of our home are never truly fixed. They are a fluid boundary, an unfinished edge that reflects the sun's pulse and the galaxy's pressure. Inside this bubble, the solar wind, a constant stream of charged particles, acts as a cosmic sculptor. It doesn't just pass through the system, it interacts with everything it touches. It shapes the tails of comets, it erodes the atmospheres of unprotected worlds, and it carries the sun's magnetic signature to the very doorstep of the stars. This wind is a form of ongoing construction. It is the sun's way of reaching out and maintaining its domain, a continuous process of filling the system with its own energy. There is no point at which the solar wind is done. It is a perpetual flow, a reminder that stability in the universe is not the absence of movement, but the presence of a steady, reliable rhythm. There is a quiet, fascinating hypothesis that the solar system is currently traveling through a particularly dense region of the Milky Way, a local fluff of interstellar clouds that is gently pressing against our heliosphere. This pressure causes the boundary of our system, the termination shock, to shift and ripple. It is as if our entire neighborhood is taking a long, slow breath as it navigates the currents of the galaxy. This tells us that the solar system is not a closed book, but a voyager. We are interacting with the broader universe in ways that take thousands of years to manifest. The chemistry of the space we are in today is slightly different from the space we occupied when the pyramids were built, and it will be different again in the deep future. We are part of a grand, unfinished migration through the stars. This sense of being a traveler can bring a profound feeling of peace. We often worry about our own small boundaries, our homes, our routines, our sense of place. But on a cosmic scale, our very home is a moving, breathing entity that is comfortable with the unknown. The solar system doesn't need to know exactly what kind of interstellar cloud it will encounter in 10,000 years. It simply continues its steady, rhythmic expansion, trusting in the laws of physics to maintain its balance. You can adopt that same trust tonight. You don't need to have your entire future mapped out to be safe. You can be like the heliosphere, flexible, resilient, and focused on the steady pulse of your own heart. As the night grows deeper, imagine this invisible solar wind moving through the space around the Earth. It is a silent, golden river of energy, flowing past the moon and out toward the giants. It carries no sound, but it carries the promise of the sun's protection. You are resting inside this protective bubble, held in a space that is being constantly maintained by the most powerful forces in the neighborhood. The emptiness of your room is actually filled with this cosmic breath, a reminder that you are never truly alone. You are part of a system that is actively looking after itself and you. This unfinished negotiation at the edge of the system also reminds us of the value of transition. The boundary where the solar wind meets the interstellar medium is called the heliopause, and it is a place of incredible complexity and subtle beauty. It is where one influence ends and another begins, a zone of mixing and merging. We often find transitions in our own lives to be stressful, the space between jobs, between relationships, or even the space between wakefulness and sleep. But the heliopause teaches us that these in-between spaces are where the most interesting things happen. They are the places where we define ourselves against the rest of the world. They are not gaps to be rushed through, but territories to be honored. As you drift toward the edge of your own consciousness, let the solar wind of your thoughts begin to slow down. You are approaching your own personal heliopause, the boundary where the active day meets the deep, quiet dark of the night. You don't need to force yourself across this line. You can simply drift toward it, allowing the pressures of the day to be balanced by the growing weight of your rest. You are entering a new medium, a space of dreams and restoration, where the rules of the waking world no longer apply. It is an unfinished space, a place where your mind can play with the fragments of the day and turn them into something new. Imagine the vast blue-tinted silence of the interstellar space that lies just beyond our reach. It is a place of ancient stars and drifting nebulae, a landscape of infinite possibility. The solar system is moving toward that horizon with a calm, unhurried grace. It isn't trying to reach a destination, it is simply enjoying the journey. You can do the same. You can let go of the need for conclusions tonight. You can allow your story to remain open-ended, a beautiful work in progress that will continue to unfold in the morning. The solar system is a masterpiece that refuses to be finished because the act of becoming is more beautiful than the state of being. The sun will keep breathing, the planets will keep drifting, and the boundaries of our home will keep shifting. And you, in the quiet of your room, are a perfect reflection of this cosmic process. You are a living, breathing part of the unfinished architecture, a traveler in the dark who is exactly where they need to be. Let the steady, rhythmic pulse of the heliosphere guide you into a deep and restorative sleep, knowing that the universe is wide, the journey is long, and you are perfectly safe in the middle of it all. The slow recessional of the lunar companion. While we have looked to the distant gas giants and the pulsing heart of the sun, there is an unfinished story much closer to home. One that we often take for granted because it has been a part of the human experience since our very first ancestors looked up in wonder. The moon, our silent, silver companion, is often perceived as a static, finished relic of the ancient past. We see its craters and its dusty seas as a completed map of a dead world. However, if we shift our perspective to the slow, patient scales of cosmic time, we find that the moon is actually in the middle of a grand, multi-billion-year departure. It is not a fixed anchor, but a traveler that is slowly, rhythmically widening its orbit, a process that continues to reshape the very rhythm of life on Earth. Every year, the moon moves approximately 3.8 centimeters further away from our planet. This distance, roughly the width of 2 fingers, seems insignificant on the scale of a human life. But it is a profound testament to the unfinished nature of the Earth-Moon system. This migration is the result of a delicate energy exchange known as tidal friction. As the Earth rotates, its oceans bulge toward the moon, and the friction of that water moving against the seafloor acts like a subtle brake, slowing the Earth's rotation. In response, that lost energy is transferred to the moon, giving it the boost it needs to climb slightly higher into the dark. We are living in a long-form transition where the days are becoming longer and the moon is becoming smaller in our sky. The solar system is not a finished clock. It is a mechanism that is slowly winding down and spreading out. This slow-motion farewell is a reminder that the stability we feel is a dynamic, living thing. The relationship between the Earth and the moon is a conversation that has been going on for over 4 billion years, and it has not yet reached its conclusion. There was a time in the deep past when the moon was so close that it loomed massive in the sky, and the tides it pulled were miles high, reshaping the continents with every pass. We are currently in a sweet spot of that journey, a temporary moment where the moon's apparent size perfectly matches the sun's, allowing for the rare and beautiful phenomenon of a total solar eclipse. But this, too, is unfinished. In the distant future, the moon will have drifted so far that it can no longer cover the sun, and the era of total eclipses will come to a quiet, natural end. There is something deeply peaceful about this cosmic patience. The moon does not hurry to leave us, and the earth does not struggle to hold on. They follow the gentle, unwavering laws of physics, allowing their partnership to evolve at a pace that honors the vastness of time. As you settle into your bed, you can reflect on the recessions in your own life, the things that are slowly moving away, the chapters that are gracefully closing, and the way your own rhythms change as you grow. Like the earth, you're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to let go of the energy of the day and allow it to be transferred into the quiet of the night. You are part of a system that understands that every departure is simply a part of a larger, more beautiful orbit. The surface of the moon itself, though often called dead, is also a work in progress. Without an atmosphere or a magnetic field to protect it, the moon is constantly being gardened by the microscopic debris of the solar system. Every day, thousands of tiny dust grains from comets and asteroids strike the lunar surface at incredible speeds, grinding the rocks into a fine glassy powder called regolith. This is a form of weathering that happens in total silence, a slow-motion transformation that has been smoothing the edges of craters for eons. The moon is a library of the system's history, but the library is still adding new pages. It is an unfinished archive, waiting for the next grain of dust to fall and leave its mark. When we look at the moon tonight, we should see it not as a ghost of the past, but as a participant in the present. It is still pulling on our oceans, still stabilizing the tilt of our planet, and still reflecting the sun's light into our darkest hours. Its lack of finality is what makes its presence so comforting. It tells us that we don't need to be finished to be useful. We don't need to be in our final position to provide stability to those around us. We are all moving, drifting, and evolving, held in place by invisible threads of gravity and memory. Imagine the silence on the lunar plains, a silence so absolute that you could hear the beating of your own heart. There is no wind to stir the dust, only the magnificent heavy weight of time. The shadows of the mountains stretch out for miles, slowly moving as the moon takes its 27-day day. In that stillness, there is no sense of urgency. The moon has all the time in the world to find its way. You can invite that same lunar stillness into your own room. Let the worries of the day be like the ancient craters, present but smoothed over by the passage of time. Let your thoughts settle like the fine lunar dust, finding their place in the quiet, dark corners of your mind. As you drift towards sleep, imagine the moon's slow retreat as a gentle, rhythmic breathing. With every year, it takes a tiny step back, exhaling its energy into the void. It is a dance of incredible grace, a testament to the fact that the universe is never stagnant. Even the most solid-looking things are in motion. You are safe in this movement. You are part of a system that knows how to balance the near and the far, the fast and the slow. The earth will keep turning, the moon will keep drifting, and the architecture of the night will continue to support you in your rest. The solar system is a story that is still being told, and you are a vital part of its current chapter. By resting now, you are participating in the Earth's own slowing down, aligning your body with the deep, tidal rhythms of the planet. You are allowing yourself to be unfinished, to be in transition, and to be exactly where you are in the grand silver light of the cosmic evening. Sleep now, and let the moon watch over your dreams as it continues its long, beautiful, and patient journey through the stars. The slow metabolism of rocky worlds. As we return our attention to the inner circle of our system, the rocky worlds of Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, we find a different kind of unfinished business, one that takes place deep within the stone. We often view a planet as a solid, completed object, a finished sphere of mineral and metal. But the truth is that a rocky planet is a living thermal engine, a heat sink that is still trying to balance its internal fire with the cold of the vacuum. This process, the slow cooling and settling of a planet's core, is what determines its destiny. It is an unfinished metabolism, a geological breathing that dictates whether a world remains active and vibrant or becomes a silent, frozen monument. Mercury, the smallest and innermost of our family, offers a beautiful, subtle example of this ongoing work. For decades, we thought Mercury was a finished fossil, a world that had cooled and died shortly after its birth. But when we looked closer, we found thousands of lobate scarps, colossal, winding cliffs that look like wrinkles on the skin of an old fruit. These are not just ancient features, they are signs that Mercury is still shrinking. As the planet's massive iron core slowly cools and solidifies, the entire world is contracting, its crust buckling and snapping to accommodate a smaller interior. Mercury is a world in the middle of a literal settling, a world that is still finding its final size, billions of years into its life. It is an unfinished sculpture, still being carved by its own internal cold. On Venus, the unfinished story is one of hidden activity. Hidden beneath a thick, golden veil of clouds, the surface of Venus is a landscape of vast volcanic plains and fractured mountains. Because Venus lacks the plate tectonics of Earth, it cannot release its internal heat in a steady, rhythmic way. Instead, some scientists believe it undergoes episodic recycling, long periods of quiet, followed by massive, planet-wide resurfacing events where the crust melts and renews itself. If this is true, Venus is a world that is currently holding its breath, waiting for the next great chapter of its physical transformation. It is not a stagnant desert, but a pressurized vessel of potential, a world where the ground itself is waiting for its moment to change. Earth, of course, is the master of the unfinished. Our planet has found a way to maintain a perfect, steady state of renewal through the constant movement of tectonic plates. The seafloors are replaced every few 100 million years, and the mountains are pushed up even as the rain washes them away. This is a form of dynamic stability, a balance that is only possible because the process is never finished. If the Earth ever stopped shifting, if the plates ever locked into a final position, the planet's chemical cycles would fail, and life as we know it would cease. Our existence depends on the fact that the Earth is a work in progress. We live in the cracks between moving plates, in the brief moments between geological breaths. Mars, the red wanderer, represents a different stage of this unfinished metabolism. Mars is smaller than Earth, and its fire has dimmed faster. Its great volcanoes, the largest in the solar system, have been quiet for millions of years. But Mars is not entirely still. There are signs of Marsquakes and the occasional release of gases that suggest a lingering subterranean warmth. Mars is a world in transition, a planet that is slowly, gracefully moving towards a state of total rest, yet refusing to fully let go of its past. It is an unfinished ghost story, a place where the wind still carves the dunes and the frost still patterns the rocks, even as the deep heart of the world grows cold. As you settle into your own rest, you can think of your body and mind as a similar thermal engine. You have spent the day in a state of high activity, processing energy and information, and now you are entering a period of cooling and settling. Just as the planets find their balance by releasing their heat into the dark, you are releasing the tensions of the day. You don't need to be finished with your thoughts or your projects to find peace. You can trust the slow metabolism of your own being to continue its work while you sleep. Your mind will settle, your body will repair itself, and you will find your own equilibrium in the quiet. The silence of a cooling planet is not a sign of failure, but a sign of maturity. There is a profound dignity in the way Mercury wrinkles and the way Mars rests. They are following the natural laws of energy, moving from a state of chaotic heat toward a state of elegant, ordered coolness. You are doing the same. The fire of the day's activities is fading, replaced by the steady, rhythmic pulse of your breathing. You are moving into the shadow of the earth, a place where the noise of the sun is muffled and the deep, internal quiet of the world can finally be heard. Imagine the deep interior of a rocky world, a place of immense pressure and ancient heat where minerals change their form and the very stone behaves like a slow-moving liquid. This is the foundation of everything we know. It is a place that never sees the light of day, yet it determines the shape of the mountains and the breadth of the volcanoes. You have a similar foundation within yourself, a deep, quiet core of strength and peace that remains untouched by the events of the day. By resting now, you are reconnecting with that core. You are allowing the surface to settle so that the foundation can be felt. The solar system is a collection of worlds at different stages of their life cycles, each one an unfinished experiment in how to hold on to heat and light. We are lucky to live on the one that has found a way to keep the experiment going for so long. But even on the quietest worlds, the process continues. The universe is patient. It doesn't mind if it takes 1 billion years to cool a core or 1 million years to raise a mountain. It understands that the beauty is in the process, not the product. As the night wraps around you, let the heavy geological silence of the rocky worlds fill your room. Imagine the wrinkles of Mercury and the frozen plains of Mars as maps of a journey that is still being traveled. You are part of that same journey. You are a passenger on a warm, active world, moving through a system that values the long view. Let go of the need for immediate results. Let go of the need to be done. Allow yourself to be an unfinished masterpiece, a world in transition, and let the slow, beautiful pulse of the planetary hearts guide you into a deep and restorative sleep. the infinite patience of the cometary clouds. As we drift further still, past the cooling hearts of the rocky worlds and the majestic rings of the giants, we enter a realm that is perhaps the most unfinished of all, the vast, icy nurseries of the comets. We often think of comets as rare visitors, spectacular streaks of light that occasionally grace our skies before vanishing back into the void. But in the grand architecture of the solar system, these visitors are merely the messengers of a much larger, quieter reality. Beyond the orbit of Neptune lies the Kuiper belt, and further still, the Oort cloud, a spherical shell of billions of icy fragments that have remained in a state of frozen potential since the very beginning. These are the scraps of our system's construction, the raw materials that were never gathered into a planet or swept into the sun. They are the ultimate testament to the universe's willingness to leave things unfinished, to keep its options open for billions of years. The objects in these distant clouds are made of the most ancient ice and dust, the same ingredients that built the earth and the sun. But because they are so far from the sun's warmth, they have never been cooked or altered by heat. They are like time capsules, preserving the chemical signature of the primordial nebula in a deep, cold sleep. There is a profound peace in this state of suspension. While the inner planets have gone through billions of years of volcanism, collisions, and the rise and fall of life, these icy wanderers have simply floated in the dark, untouched and unbothered. They represent a state of pure existence where the passage of time is marked not by change, but by the slow, rhythmic crawl of orbits that take tens of thousands of years to complete. Every once in a long while, the delicate balance of this frozen reservoir is disturbed. Perhaps a passing star nudges the cloud with its gravity, or a distant collision between two icy bodies sends a fragment tumbling inward toward the sun. This is the moment an object begins its journey to become a comet. It is not a sudden, violent transformation, but a slow, falling motion that takes millions of years. As the comet approaches the inner system, the sun's warmth begins to reach it, and the ice starts to turn directly into gas, creating the magnificent, glowing tail we see from Earth. This outgassing is the comet's way of breathing, a release of ancient energy that has been stored for eons. It is a beautiful, unfinished process of recycling, where the cold past is brought into the warm present to create something fleeting and spectacular. The existence of these cometary clouds tells us that the solar system is much larger and more mysterious than we usually imagine. We tend to focus on the bright, solid things, the planets and the sun, but the vast majority of our neighborhood is made of this quiet, frozen potential. It is a reminder that the unfinished parts of a system are often the most important, providing a reservoir of material and history that keeps the whole structure balanced. In our own lives, we often feel the need to be active or productive at all times. But the comets teach us that there is immense value in the quiet, frozen periods of life. There is a time for floating in the dark, for preserving our core, and for waiting for the right moment to move toward the light. Imagine the absolute stillness of a single icy body in the Oort cloud. It is a world of dark ice and starlight, far from the noise of any planet. There is no wind, no sound, and no pressure to be anything other than what it is. It is a passenger of gravity, held in a loose but certain embrace by a sun it can barely see. You can invite that same sense of weightless stillness into your own body tonight. You don't need to be doing anything. You are allowed to simply exist in the dark, preserving your energy and allowing the slow currents of time to carry you. Like the ancient ice of a comet, your own memories and experiences are safely stored within you, waiting for their own moment of warmth and light. The unfinished nature of the comets is also seen in their fragility. They are not solid rocks, but dirty snowballs held together by the weakest of forces. When they come near the sun, they often break apart, crumbling into streams of dust that eventually become the meteor showers we see from Earth. This dissolution is not a failure. It is a transformation. The comet becomes a part of the Earth's atmosphere, a part of the sun's light, and a part of the dust that fills the system. It is a reminder that being finished often means being integrated into something larger. Nothing is ever truly lost. It is only redistributed. As you drift towards sleep, let the image of the vast icy clouds stay with you. Think of the billions of tiny, quiet worlds out there, each one following its own long, patient path through the dark. They are not in a hurry to reach the sun, and they are not worried about their place in the system. They simply are. You can find that same sense of being within yourself. You are a part of the same architecture, built from the same ancient dust and ice. You are held by the same laws of gravity and light. And just like the comets, you are a work in progress, a masterpiece of potential that is still being written by the stars. Imagine the soft, glowing coma of a comet as it nears the sun, a veil of light that is millions of miles wide, yet as thin as a whisper. It is a structure made of nothing but gas and dust, yet it is one of the most beautiful sights in the universe. It is a testament to the fact that even the most fragile, unfinished things can possess a magnificent presence. You don't need to be solid or complete to be beautiful. You don't need to have all the answers to be whole. You can be like the comet, a mixture of ancient ice and new light, moving through the dark with a grace that defies explanation. In the quiet of your room, let the cold, calm peace of the outer system settle over you. You are far from the heat of the day's activities, resting in the cool shadow of the night. You are entering your own Oort cloud, a space of deep, restorative stillness where your thoughts can drift and settle without any need for direction. The solar system will continue its slow, beautiful work while you sleep, and the comets will continue their million-year journeys through the dark. You are safe in this vastness. You are a part of the unfinished symphony of the stars. Sleep now, and let the infinite patience of the icy clouds guide you into a deep and lasting rest, the slow breath of the interstellar wind. As we move our awareness beyond the furthest reaches of the icy clouds, past the last vestiges of the sun's gravitational dominance, we find ourselves at the most profound and unfinished boundary of all, the heliopause. This is the place where the sun's influence, the solar wind that has traveled millions of miles, finally tires and meets the vast, cold pressure of the interstellar medium. We often imagine the solar system as a closed bubble, a finished sphere of influence. But the reality is that our home is a traveler, a glowing ship of light sailing through a sea of ancient stardust. The heliopause is not a solid wall, but a flexible, breathing interface, an unfinished negotiation between the breath of our star and the breath of the galaxy. The interstellar wind is a mixture of gas and dust from stars that died long before our sun was born. It is the raw material of the Milky Way, a thin mist of hydrogen and helium that fills the spaces between the stars. As our sun moves through the galaxy at over 500,000 miles per hour, it plows into this mist, creating a bow shock similar to the wave at the front of a ship. This boundary is constantly shifting, expanding and contracting as we move through different densities of the galactic sea. It is an unfinished architecture, a protective shield that is being reshaped by the very journey it facilitates. To look at the edge of our system is to see a world that is always in transition, always adapting to the new environments it encounters. Inside this bubble, the solar wind acts as a constant gardener, clearing away the most harmful cosmic rays and keeping the system bathed in the sun's magnetic signature. But this process is not perfect, nor is it meant to be. Some particles from the interstellar wind manage to leak through the boundary, drifting into our system like messages from a distant shore. These interstellar neutrals carry with them the chemical history of the galaxy, bringing new material into our neighborhood billions of years after the planets formed. This means that the solar system is still being built from the outside in. We are constantly breathing in the galaxy, a slow inhalation that ensures our story remains connected to the larger life of the Milky Way. There is a profound peace in this idea of the solar system as a voyager. It suggests that we don't need to be stationary to be stable. Our stability comes from the balance of forces, the outward push of the sun and the inward pressure of the stars. It is a dynamic harmony, a state of grace that exists only because the journey is unfinished. In our own lives, we often crave a sense of arrival, a point where we can finally stop moving and be done. But the stars teach us that the journey is the destination. We are safe, not because we have reached the final harbor, but because we are held in a steady, rhythmic movement through the dark. As you settle into the quiet of your room, imagine this invisible interstellar wind brushing against the far reaches of our system. It is a movement so vast and so slow that it defies human measurement. Yet it is as real as the air in your lungs. You can feel a sense of expansion in your own mind as you consider this scale. You are not just a person on a planet. You are a passenger on a star-bound vessel, navigating the currents of a magnificent, unfolding cosmos. The unfinished parts of your life are not gaps or failures. They are the flexible boundaries that allow you to interact with the world around you. They are the places where you meet the interstellar wind of new experiences and allow it to reshape you. The darkness outside your window is not a void. It is a medium. It is the fabric of the galaxy, a velvet ocean that supports the weight of billions of suns. When we turn off the lights, we are not losing our way. We are simply entering the same state as the rest of the system, a state of quiet, focused movement. In the dark, the distractions of the surface fade away, and we can feel the deeper rhythms of the voyage. We can trust the sun to lead the way, and we can trust the gravity of our own being to keep us grounded. The solar system has been traveling through this part of the galaxy for thousands of years, and it will continue to do so for thousands more, unhurried and unafraid. The unfinished nature of the heliopause also reminds us that boundaries are meant to be thin and porous. We often build walls around our hearts or our thoughts to keep out the other, but the sun shows us a different way. It creates a shield, yes, but it allows for a constant exchange. It allows the galaxy to touch it, and it sends its own light back into the void. This openness is what keeps the system vibrant and alive. By allowing yourself to be unfinished tonight, you are opening yourself to the restorative power of the night. You are allowing the quiet energy of the stars to filter into your room and your dreams, bringing with it a sense of perspective and peace. Imagine the two Voyager spacecraft, the furthest human-made objects, as they pass through this invisible boundary. They are small, silent ambassadors, moving into the deep dark of the interstellar sea. They carry with them the sounds and images of our world, a golden record of a civilization that is still finding its way. They are the ultimate symbols of our unfinished curiosity, moving into the unknown at a pace that honors the vastness of the space they inhabit. You can feel a similar sense of quiet exploration as you drift towards sleep. You are moving into the interstellar space of your own subconscious, a place where the rules of the day no longer apply and anything is possible. The solar system is a masterpiece that is still being painted, and the heliopause is the soft, blurred edge where the colors of our home meet the colors of the galaxy. It is a place of immense beauty and subtle power, a reminder that the universe is never truly done. As you sink into the supportive embrace of your bed, let the thought of this vast, breathing boundary fill you with a sense of safety. You are protected. You are part of a grand, glowing journey, and you are allowed to take as much time as you need to find your way through the dark. Let the slow, rhythmic pulse of the interstellar wind guide your breathing. With every breath, you are taking in a small part of the universe, and with every exhale, you are contributing your own energy back to the whole. You are a participant in a magnificent, unfinished exchange. Sleep now, and let the silence of the heliopause watch over you, knowing that the journey is long, the stars are bright, and you are exactly where you need to be in the grand architecture of the night, the slow cooling of the giants' hearts. As we sink deeper into the quiet of the night, we return our thoughts to the interiors of the great gas giants, Jupiter and Saturn. We often imagine these worlds as finished spheres, massive and unchanging. But deep within their bellies, there is an unfinished process of contraction and heat that has been unfolding since the very dawn of the solar system. Unlike the rocky planets, which have a thin crust over a mantle, The giants are almost entirely fluid, a vast ocean of hydrogen that becomes so pressurized in the depths that it turns into a glowing liquid metal. This internal world is not static. It is a cooling heart that is still settling, still compacting under its own immense weight. Every year, Jupiter and Saturn radiate more heat into space than they receive from the Sun. They are worlds that are slowly, patiently finishing the work of their own birth. This internal heat is the engine that drives the magnificent storms we see on the surface. It is a slow, rhythmic metabolism that moves heat from the core to the clouds in great rising plumes. Because these planets are still contracting, they are literally getting smaller by a few millimeters every year. This is a form of planetary maturity that takes billions of years to complete. The giants are not done. They are in the middle of a long-form cooling, a transition from the chaotic heat of their formation toward a more stable, distant future. It is a reminder that even the most massive and powerful things in the universe require an immense amount of time to find their final form. One of the most fascinating and unfinished mysteries of these interiors is the rain that falls in the deep. Scientists have hypothesized that within the pressurized layers of Saturn and Jupiter, the conditions are so extreme that helium can condense into droplets and fall like rain toward the core. This is not water, but a metallic liquid rain that carries energy and mass into the deep interior. It is a hidden weather system that we can only see through the subtle gravity and magnetic signatures the planets leave behind. This helium rain is a way for the planet to reorganize its own chemistry, a slow-motion sorting of its ingredients that has no immediate deadline. It is a quiet, internal process of refinement that happens in total darkness, miles beneath the visible clouds. This sense of internal refinement can be a comforting reflection as you prepare for sleep. We often feel that our own interiors, our thoughts, our emotions, and our growth should be visible and completed quickly. But the giants show us that the most significant work often happens out of sight and takes eons to settle. You are allowed to have your own internal weather, your own slow-motion sorting of experiences. You don't need to have a finished version of yourself to be magnificent. Like Jupiter, you can be a work in progress, a vast and complex system that is still finding its balance, still cooling, and still evolving according to its own deep internal rhythm. In the stillness of the night, imagine the immense pressure and heat at the center of a giant planet. It is a place of absolute density and power, yet it is governed by a patient, predictable cooling. There is no rush in the way the core settles. There is no urgency in the falling of the helium rain. Everything happens at a pace that respects the scale of the world. You can adopt this same sense of scale for your own life. The worries that seem so pressing in the light of day are like the surface storms, vivid and active, yes, but they are driven by deeper, slower currents that have all the time in the world to find their peace. The unfinished nature of the giants' hearts also tells us about the endurance of energy. The heat that Jupiter radiates tonight is the same heat that was gathered from the primordial nebula 4.5 billion years ago. It has been preserved, used, and slowly released over an unimaginable stretch of time. This tells us that nothing is truly lost. Your own energy, your own experiences, and your own light are part of a long-term cycle that doesn't just disappear. They are held, refined, and slowly integrated into the larger story of who you are. You are a repository of your own history, a world that is still settling into its true form. Imagine the deep, resonant hum of Saturn's magnetic field, a vibration that is generated by the movement of its liquid metallic hydrogen. This field reaches out into space for millions of miles, protecting its many moons and holding its rings in place. It is a physical manifestation of the planet's internal life, a signature of its ongoing work. You have your own magnetic field, the influence you have on the world, the love you share, and the quiet presence you maintain even when you are still. This influence doesn't require you to be finished. It radiates from you exactly as you are, a byproduct of your own unique, unfolding process. As the night wraps around you, let the heavy, supportive silence of the giant planets fill your room. Imagine yourself as a world that is slowly cooling and settling into a state of deep rest. The storms of the day have faded, and you are reconnecting with the quiet, powerful heat of your own core. You are exactly where you need to be in the long-form biography of your life. You are a traveler in the dark, a participant in a cosmic settling that is as beautiful as it is slow. The solar system is a place of immense patience, and the cooling giants are its most patient residents. They are not trying to be rocky planets, and they are not trying to be stars. They are content to be exactly what they are: fluid, evolving, and beautifully unfinished. You can share in that contentment tonight. You don't need to be anything other than what you are in this moment. You don't need to reach a destination to be successful. You are a part of a system that values the process, a system that knows how to take billions of years to reach its potential. Let your breathing slow to the pace of a giant's contraction. With every exhale, imagine yourself releasing a tiny bit of the day's heat, settling just a little bit deeper into the supportive dark. You are safe in this movement. You are part of a grand, glowing architecture that has no interest in hurrying. The stars are patient, the planets are settling, and you are allowed to drift into a deep and restorative sleep, knowing that your own heart, like the hearts of the giants, is finding its way toward a distant, perfect peace. The wandering nomads, comets, and the architecture of connectivity. As we push our boundaries further into the deep, dark reaches of our celestial home, we encounter the true wanderers of the solar system, the comets. If the planets are the sturdy foundations and the sun is the hearth, then comets are the messengers, the nomadic travelers that stitch together the distant frozen outskirts with the warm, vibrant center. A comet is perhaps the most poetically unfinished object in existence. For billions of years, it exists as a dirty snowball, a silent, frozen lump of primordial ice, dust, and organic molecules drifting in the absolute zero of the Oort cloud or the Kuiper belt. In this state, it is a dormant seed, a relic of the very beginning of time that has been kept in a cosmic deep freeze. It is a work in progress that waits for eons for its moment of realization. a journey that begins with a single gravitational nudge from a passing star or a distant collision. When a comet finally begins its long, lonely fall toward the Sun, it undergoes a transformation that is as magnificent as it is fragile. As it crosses the invisible boundaries into the inner solar system, the Sun's warmth begins to reach its frozen core. The ice doesn't melt into liquid. Instead, it sublimates, turning directly into gas and creating the coma, a glowing atmosphere that can grow to be larger than the Sun itself. This is the comet waking up. It is the moment when an unfinished piece of history suddenly becomes a spectacular participant in the present. The tale that follows, stretching millions of miles across the velvet dark, is a trail of breadcrumbs leading back to the dawn of the solar system. It is made of the very dust and gases that were present when the Earth was being formed, finally released from their icy prison. What makes the comet's story so deeply unfinished is its inherent transience. A comet is not built to last in the warmth. Every time it passes the Sun, it loses a part of itself. Tons of ice and dust are stripped away, scattered into the void. Some comets are one-hit wonders, passing by once and being flung out into interstellar space, never to return. Others are periodic, returning every few decades or centuries, becoming smaller and more skeletal with every pass. They are worlds that are literally evaporating as they perform their duties. Yet, in this slow dissolution, there is a profound act of creation. The dust left behind by comets forms the meteor streams that intersect Earth's orbit. When you see a shooting star, you are witnessing the final act of a comet's unfinished journey, a fragment of ancient ice finally meeting our atmosphere and turning into a flash of light. The comet's death is the sky's beauty. This connectivity is the secret nervous system of the solar system. Comets have likely spent billions of years delivering the essential ingredients for life, water and complex carbon molecules, to the inner planets. We are, in a very real sense, the beneficiaries of their unfinished travels. The water in your body may have once been locked in the heart of a comet, drifting at the edge of the galaxy. This realization brings a sense of grand, interconnected peace. We are not isolated beings on a lonely rock. We are part of a continuous exchange of matter and energy that spans the entire reach of the Sun's influence. The unfinished nature of the comet is what allows it to be a giver of life. It must break apart, it must travel, and it must change for the system to thrive. The silent guardians of the Kuiper Belt. Beyond the orbit of Neptune lies the Kuiper Belt, a vast dark donut of icy worlds that serves as the second great reservoir of the solar system's unfinished potential. While the asteroid belt is made of rock and metal, the Kuiper Belt is a kingdom of ice, methane, ammonia, and water, frozen into solids harder than stone. Here, we find thousands of objects that are neither quite planets nor quite asteroids. They are the planetesimals that were never invited to the grand dance of planetary formation. They were pushed out by the gravity of the gas giants, left to orbit in the dim blue light of the outer reaches. Pluto is the most famous resident of this region, but it is far from alone. We find worlds like Eris, which is nearly as massive as Pluto, Haumea, which spins so fast it has been stretched into the shape of a football, and Makemake, a world of brilliant, frozen methane. These are unfinished planets, bodies that have enough gravity to be round, and even have their own moons and atmospheres, yet they exist in a state of suspended development. They are the quiet outliers, the guardians of the system's edge. Exploring them is like reading the discarded notes of a great architect. They show us the paths not taken, the forms that could have been, and the sheer diversity of what gravity can create when given enough time and space. The Kuiper Belt is an unfinished landscape because it is still actively being sculpted. The gravity of Neptune continues to nudge these objects, occasionally sending one on a path toward the inner system to become a comet, or trapping others in stable resonances. It is a dynamic, living frontier. It reminds us that the solar system doesn't just end at the last official planet. It fades out gracefully, transitioning into a field of icy whispers that eventually merges with the interstellar deep. This lack of a hard border is a beautiful metaphor for our own lives. We don't have to have a clear end or a rigid boundary to be meaningful. We are allowed to fade, to transition, and to exist in the in-between spaces, embracing the beauty of the in-between. As you settle into the quiet of your room, let the vastness of the outer solar system settle your mind. Think of the comets moving with incredible patience through the dark, and the Kuiper Belt objects existing in their silent, icy majesty. They are not in a hurry to be anything other than what they are. A comet doesn't feel a need to be a planet. It is content to be a traveler. A Kuiper Belt object doesn't feel lesser because it is far from the sun. It is a master of the cold. In the same way, you can let go of the pressure to be finished or complete tonight. Your life is a collection of orbits, some close to the warmth, some far in the cold. You are a work in progress, a mixture of ancient memories and new transformations, the unfinished parts of your day, the emails not sent, the conversations not had, the goals not yet reached, are simply your own Kuiper Belt. They are the reservoirs of your future potential. They don't need to be dealt with tonight. They can drift in the quiet, frozen space of your rest, waiting for their own moment to move toward the light. The silence of the outer system is a heavy, supportive silence. It is the silence of a library where the books are still being written. Feel that silence in your own space. Let it fill the gaps between your thoughts. You are safe in this vast, unfinished architecture. The same gravity that holds the comets in their long, elegant paths is the force that pulls you towards sleep. You are part of the system's balance. You are a participant in its ongoing story. Imagine the sun as a distant, friendly light, an anchor that you are connected to, no matter how far you drift. You are moving through the night with the grace of a celestial body. There is no wind to disturb you, no noise to distract you. There is only the steady, rhythmic pulse of the universe. The comets are out there, the icy worlds are out there, and you are here, all of you together in the great unfinished dark. Sleep now, and let your dreams wander as far as the Aurop cloud, knowing that you will always be brought back by the dawn, the laboratories of life, the unfinished oceans of the outer moons. As we leave the drifting ice of the Kuiper Belt and turn our gaze back toward the mighty gas giants, we find the most tantalizing unfinished business in all of modern science: the hidden subterranean oceans of the outer moons. For centuries, we viewed the moons of Jupiter and Saturn as mere accessories to their massive parents, frozen, cratered rocks caught in a gravitational lock. But as our robotic eyes reached these distant worlds, we discovered that the surface was only the beginning of the story. Worlds like Europa, Enceladus, and Ganymede are not finished, solid objects. They are shells of ice floating atop vast, dark, liquid oceans. These are the solar system's unfinished laboratories, places where the ingredients for life have been brewing for billions of years in total darkness, waiting for a spark of discovery that may redefine our place in the universe. Europa, the smallest of the 4 Galilean moons of Jupiter, is perhaps the most famous of these oceanic frontiers. Its surface is a masterpiece of chaos, a web of reddish fractures and lenticulae that look like cracks in a frozen lake. These are not ancient scars. They are signs of a world that is constantly being flexed and broken by the immense tidal forces of Jupiter. This gravitational kneading keeps Europa's interior warm, melting the ice from below and creating an ocean that may contain more than twice the amount of water found on Earth. This ocean is an unfinished mystery because it is completely sealed off from the vacuum of space by a shell of ice miles thick. In the pitch black of that deep sea, far from the reach of the sun, life may have found a way to exist around hydrothermal vents, fueled by chemical energy rather than light. Europa is a world whose true face remains hidden, an unfinished map that we are only just beginning to draw. Then there is Enceladus, a tiny moon of Saturn that has become one of the most exciting locations in the search for life. Unlike Europa, which keeps its ocean hidden, Enceladus is actively sharing its secrets with the void. From its tiger stripes, deep fissures at the South Pole, it blasts magnificent plumes of water vapor and ice grains hundreds of miles into space. These geysers are the breath of an unfinished world, a direct link to a global ocean tucked beneath the ice. When the Cassini spacecraft flew through these plumes, it found organic molecules, salts, and evidence of hydrothermal activity. Enceladus is a world that is literally spilling its guts, inviting us to witness its ongoing internal chemistry. It is a work in progress, a world that is actively contributing to the structure of Saturn's E-ring by shedding its own ocean into the planet's orbit. The unfinished quality of these moons lies in their potential. We have the water, we have the chemistry, and we have the energy, the 3 pillars of life. But we do not yet have the answer. These moons represent the prebiotic, or perhaps biogenic chapters of our system's history that are still being written. While Earth's story of life is well underway, the outer moons might be at the very beginning, or perhaps they have taken a path so different from ours that we wouldn't even recognize the results. They remind us that the solar system is not just a collection of physical laws, but a series of biological possibilities. Every time we look at the plumes of Enceladus or the cracks of Europa, we are looking at a question that has remained unanswered for 4 billion years. The dynamic stability of the Jovian dance. The architecture of these moons is also unfinished in its orbital arrangement. The three inner Galilean moons, Io, Europa, and Ganymede, are caught in a perfect mathematical embrace called a Laplace resonance. For every one orbit Ganymede makes, Europa makes 2, and Io makes 4. This resonance is a beautiful, stable structure, yet it is the very thing that keeps these moons unfinished geologically. The constant gravitational tugging prevents them from ever settling into a quiet, frozen state. It ensures that Io stays volcanic, Europa stays oceanic, and Ganymede stays magnetically active. They are kept in a state of perpetual becoming by the very laws of motion that govern them. This dynamic stability is a powerful metaphor for our own existence. We often think that balance means a lack of movement or a lack of conflict. But in the Jovian system, balance is found in the constant pulling and pushing. The moons are kept alive and liquid because they are never left alone. In your own life, the pressures and tugs from the world around you are not just burdens, they are the forces that keep you from freezing over. They are the energy that keeps your own internal ocean liquid and vibrant. You are a participant in a resonance with your family, your work, and your community. Like Europa, you may feel the cracks on the surface, but those cracks are proof that there is something deep and powerful moving within you. The deep silence of the inner abyss. As you settle further into your rest, imagine the environment of these subsurface oceans. It is a place of absolute velvet silence. There is no wind, no sunlight, and no seasons. There is only the slow, rhythmic groan of the ice shell above and the steady, warm pulse of the seafloor below. This is a place of total focus, where the universe has been conducting a single experiment in chemistry for eons. You can adopt this same sense of deep, focused quiet tonight. You are retreating from the surface of your day, the noise, the light, the fractures, and sinking into the calm, supportive depths of your own inner self. In this deep space, there is no need to perform. There is no need to be finished. You are a world of potential, a reservoir of thoughts and dreams that are safely tucked away beneath a layer of rest. The ice of your sleep protects you from the vacuum of the outside world, allowing your internal systems to rejuvenate and recalibrate. You are a hidden ocean, vast and deep, containing mysteries that don't need to be solved tonight. You can simply exist in the warmth of your own being, trusting in the gravity of your life to keep you in orbit. The outer moons teach us that the most interesting things are often hidden. A world that looks like a frozen ball of ice from the outside can be a teeming, warm ocean on the inside. You are the same. Whatever you presented to the world today was just the crust. The true essence of you is far deeper, more complex, and more durable than anything on the surface. By resting now, you are honoring that inner depth. You are allowing the hydrothermal vents of your spirit to replenish your energy and your creativity. As the night deepens, let the image of the glowing plumes of Enceladus stay with you, a symbol of a world that is open, expressive, and connected to the stars. You are part of this grand, unfinished architecture. You are a world with an ocean inside, a participant in the great Jovian dance, and a masterpiece of cosmic potential. The solar system will keep its secrets for a little longer, and you can keep yours as you drift into a deep and restorative sleep. The dark is not empty. It is full of water, heat, and the possibility of life. You are safe in this dark. You are held by the same laws that keep the moons in their resonance and the oceans in their beds. Sleep now, and let the quiet, unfinished mysteries of the outer worlds guide your dreams, knowing that the most beautiful discoveries are still waiting for us in the morning.